Chapter 852. The information revealed by the inner demons shocked Tang Zheng greatly. He hurriedly said, "Qiyu, now that the four symbols venerable is damaged, you must know how to repair it, right?" Qiyu hesitated. In fact, he did have bad intentions. He had been waiting for an opportunity to seize Tang Zheng's body, but now that the inner demons had interfered, he had no choice but to appear. He was completely passive. Of course, he did not want Tang Zheng to recover the four symbols venerable, but now that he was asked this question, if he did not tell the truth, he would not be able to get away with it. "Yes, I know," Qiyu said helplessly. "As long as you return to the witch tribe, there will naturally be a way to repair it. The four symbols venerable has always been nourished by the ley lines of the 100,000 mountains. As long as it is connected to the ley lines of the 100,000 mountains, everything will be done naturally. The square of the witch tribe is a huge formation. As long as the four symbols venerable returns, the formation will naturally be activated. The four symbols venerable can absorb the power of the ley lines and recover." Ley lines of the earth. Tang Zheng had a strange look on his face. Yes, ley lines of the earth are the power of the earth. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth is not only contained in the air, but also in everything. Even the soil on the ground contains spiritual qi. However, the power of ley lines of the earth cannot be absorbed by ordinary people. Only through a magical formation can it be drawn out and used for oneself. You guys, the Jiuli tribe has many strange spells. This is something I have never heard of. The inner demons clicked his tongue in wonder. Qiyu snorted and said angrily, "How can you know all about the magic of the Jiuli tribe? Is that so? Since it is so magical, then say it. Young man, I believe it will be very useful to you. Force him to say it." The inner demons gloated. "Inner demons, you?" Qiyu flew into a rage. Although Tang Zheng also wanted to know the magic of the Jiuli tribe, he did not want to push Qiyu too hard. That would be counterproductive. Stop arguing. Qiyu, I won't force you to tell me the Ninely tribe's magic. You just need to tell me why you imprisoned the witch tribe in the 100,000 mountains back then. This was a problem that had always troubled Tang Zheng, and even the shaman tribe. Back then, the 100 Faces Star Lord had analyzed that only Qiyu himself could imprison the witch tribe, and Tang Zheng had also seen Qiyu lose in that illusion, and even had his heart dug out. However, for a powerhouse like Qiyu, even if his heart was dug out, he might not necessarily die. For example, his heart of Qiyu had been preserved, and there was even a strand of remnant soul left in it. Qiyu hesitated, but seeing that Tang Zheng seemed to be impatient, he quickly said, "I'll tell you. The shaman tribe was indeed imprisoned by me in the 100,000 great mountains. Back in the Battle of Zhuolu, after my defeat, my soul scattered, turning into strands of remnant souls to do what I have yet to do. One of them was to imprison the shaman tribe. The shaman tribe is a branch of the Ninely tribe. Why did you only imprison the shaman tribe?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. "Because the origin of the Ninely tribe is the shaman tribe. It's just that too many years have passed and many people no longer remember this matter. The shaman tribe is the core of the Ninely tribe. As long as the shaman tribe is not destroyed, the Ninely tribe will have the chance to create glory again. I know that after the Yellow Emperor won, there will no longer be a place for the shaman tribe in this world. I will imprison the shaman tribe in the 100,000 great mountains to recuperate and wait for the future to rise again." Qiyu spoke frankly with assurance. This content made Tang Zheng's emotions surge. So the shaman tribe had such a great background. Back then, the core of the entire Ninely tribe was the shaman tribe. Even the elders of the shaman tribe did not know about this. "You're already dead. How can the shaman tribe make a comeback?" Tang Zheng asked again. Qiyu chuckled. The reincarnation of the heavenly Tao. Back then, the Yellow Emperor won. In the future, there will be a day when I, Qiyu, will win. Hasn't the shaman tribe already broken through the restriction and regained their freedom? If it wasn't for my coincidence, how could the shaman tribe regain their freedom? This is the reincarnation of the heavenly Tao. Everything is possible. How can you understand the mysteries within?" Tang Zheng's heart trembled. In the unseen world, there were too many mysterious things that he was still unable to comprehend. However, Since Qiyu had made such arrangements, he was afraid that he truly had the confidence to do so. Although time had passed and the sea had turned into mulberry fields, and after tens of thousands of years, this day had finally arrived. But in Qiyu's heart, this day had arrived, and that was his victory. The shaman tribe is not as powerful as before. How can you believe that they can recreate the glory of the past? Qiyu laughed. In this world there is nothing that the shaman tribe can't do. When the time is right, the shaman tribe will rise. The Julie tribe will reappear in the world and achieve hegemony. Listening to his crazy laughter, Tang Zheng's emotions surged. Talking to this kind of person was really a test of one's willpower. If he was not careful, he would be bewitched by him. Don't listen to his shameless boasting. If the shaman tribe was really so powerful, they wouldn't have been defeated by the Yellow Emperor. The inner demons suddenly jumped out and mocked. Inner demons, you and I are irreconcilable. Qiyu roared. Come on, you couldn't do anything to me back then. Now you can't do anything to me. The inner demons were ready to provoke him. Stop talking. Tang Zheng roared. As expected, the two of them quieted down. No matter how powerful they were in the past, at this moment, in Tang Zheng's body, they had no choice but to submit to Tang Zheng. I'll ask you one last question. Tang Zheng could see that the inner demons were getting impatient, so he said, Okay, I'll answer one more question. Don't ask me in the future. I won't answer even if you ask. Qiyu was obviously in a bad mood. Tang Zheng did not care and asked directly. Xiaobai was hatched in the holy land of the shaman tribe. What is its origin? Ever since Xiaobai was hatched, the restriction that imprisoned the shaman tribe was automatically removed. Was this also set up by you in the past? Qiyu was silent. The inner demons said first. The origin of this little guy of yours is not simple. Even I can't see through it. Qiyu, don't be silent. Hurry up and tell me, what is its origin? Qiyu's voice became very old. After a long time he said, I can't answer this question. How can that be? Didn't you put it in the holy land of the shaman tribe? Tang Zheng was shocked and incredulous. It's true that I put it in the holy land, but what I put in back then was an egg, right? Qiyu asked. Yes. Back then, the first time Tang Zheng saw Xiaobai, it was an egg floating on the fiery red magma. Moreover, there were murals in the cave. The murals showed a person with 9 main meridians holding the egg with both hands. Then the egg emitted a burst of white light and nothing else. He tried to imitate it, but to his surprise, the egg actually hatched after absorbing his true qi. After a dazzling white light, little white descended into the world. Now, Qiyu said that even he did not know the origin of Xiaobai, which seemed to be a little unreasonable. Qiyu, since you said you would answer my question, what's the point of hiding it? Just answer it directly, and I won't ask you any other questions. Tang Zheng thought that Qiyu was lying perfunctorily. How am I hiding it? I really don't know the origin of Xiaobai. Well, then I'll tell you everything. You can judge whether I'm lying to you or not. I'm all ears. I've never seen Xiaobai before. I've only seen it in the shape of an egg. This egg has been passed down from the witch tribe. It's the sacred object of the witch tribe. No, it's the sacred object of the entire Ninely tribe. However, only the patriarch of each generation knows about the existence of the sacred object. The origin of this sacred object can no longer be verified, but rumor has it that it was born when the world was created. There was once an almighty ancestor of the shaman tribe who successfully hatched this egg and became your little white. That is the sacred beast of the shaman tribe. But later on, the sacred beast was said to have died and left behind an egg, which has been secretly worshipped by the witch tribe. I've also thought of a way to hatch it, but I've never succeeded. However, I also engraved that possibility in the murals, because the ancestors of the witch tribe said that this way, it could be hatched. Sacred beast. Tang Zheng was shocked, and subconsciously stroked Xiaobai who was on his shoulder. Did this little guy have such a great background? However, it was not the egg that was born when the world was created, but its descendant. Even so, it could be seen that its family background was actually related to the creation of the world. Tang Zheng was shocked inside, and a storm was set off in his heart. Because it's a sacred object, it has a mysterious power, so I used it as the core of the formation. Only by activating it and making it hatch can I unlock the formation and remove the restriction. I didn't expect you to succeed by accident. Even you were unable to hatch Xiaobai back then. Why did you make it so difficult? Aren't you afraid that no one will be able to hatch it? Qiyu said firmly. Since the ancestor has hatched it before, it means that there is a chance, so I also believe that it will succeed. If it doesn't succeed, it means that the day of the witch tribe's revival has not arrived. As long as it succeeds, the witch tribe's sacred beast will descend into the world, which means that the witch tribe will rise again. Tang Zheng's heart moved and he sneered. Xiaobai was hatched by me, he won't help you for your so-called hegemony, because he only listens to me. Qiyu was silent and did not answer. The inner demons praised. Amazing, amazing, Qiyu, your scheme is so powerful, I really admire you. I'm afraid that even the Yellow Emperor back then did not expect you to have so many tricks up your sleeves, right? Qiyu snorted and did not comment. Young man, let me tell you why he has evil intentions towards you. He has been lurking in your body all this time, waiting for the day when he will occupy your body, then control Xiaobai and complete his hegemony. Hehe, because if he changed to another body, he would not be able to control Xiaobai at all. What a good scheme. The inner demons laughed. Tang Zheng felt a chill. Qiyu this time bomb had calculated so well. This time, if the inner demons did not coincidentally enter his body, Qiyu would be in great trouble one day, and he would not be able to resist. In the end, Qiyu occupied his body, and Xiaobai would definitely think that it was him, so he would obediently listen to Qiyu. Chapter 853. Seeing Tang Zheng's ashen face, Tian Chanzi and the others hurriedly asked him what was going on. Tang Zheng shook his head. There was no need to spread this matter. Since he knew about this matter, he had to be extra vigilant against Qiyu and not let him succeed. Let's leave this place. Since Qiyu didn't want to talk, Tang Zheng could only give up and say this. What do we do with this bronze coffin? Tian Chanzi pointed at the huge object in front of them and asked. Tang Zheng's eyes turned and he curiously said, the inner demon's body is no different from a normal person's body. Why do they have to make such a big bronze coffin? This is the masterpiece of Qiyu and the Yellow Emperor. This bronze coffin can absorb all of the evil yin energy between heaven and earth. This canyon is the place where the evil yin energy is the densest. With such a large bronze coffin placed here, the coffin can absorb even more evil yin energy. It's as thick as water and wraps around me. Otherwise, how could it have trapped me for so many years? The inner demons hatefully said. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that the reason the bronze coffin was so big was not to store the inner demons, but to store the evil yin energy. He was like a standard in a glass bottle, surrounded by the evil yin energy that was like water. Hearing Tang Zheng's explanation, the others also suddenly realized. Square root, destroy this damn bronze coffin for me. I get angry just looking at it. The inner demons urged. Tang Zheng suddenly had an idea. He chuckled and with a wave of his hand, he put it into Sumeru world, but he didn't destroy it. Why did you put it away? Why didn't you destroy it? Tang Zheng shrugged and said. This bronze coffin can absorb evil yin energy, so it can be considered a treasure. It would be a pity to destroy it. Even if it doesn't have any use, it's still an antique. There's probably only one such large bronze coffin in the world, so it's worth a lot. The inner demons were speechless. The few of them went up the canyon and looked down. The canyon was still gloomy and filled with corpses of demonic beasts. This time, more than half of the demonic beasts in the 100,000 mountains had died, and the 100 transformation star sovereign had suffered heavy losses. Where are we going now? Tian Chanzi asked. Tang Zheng already had a plan. He said, let's return to the shaman tribe first. The 4 symbols venerable is damaged. I need to repair it first. The group naturally did not object. They returned along the way, and when they saw the broken tombs, their expressions did not look good. These ancient experts, even in death, could not rest in peace. They were awakened by the 100 transformations Star-Lord using a secret technique. They charged and broke through the enemy lines. And in the end, not even their corpses remained. After leaving the prehistoric heavenly tomb, The air was clear. However, it was already late. The few of them rested not far away for the night. In the darkness of the night, there seemed to be countless pairs of eyes staring at them, but they acted as if they did not see them. Tang Zheng knew that the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign must have sent demonic beasts to secretly monitor them. This was unavoidable, so why not let him see it openly? In any case, it wouldn't be long before he guessed that he had been tricked by Tang Zheng. The next day, at dawn, the few of them made a long journey to the shaman tribe. The shaman tribe seemed to be in ruins. Back then, in order to take out the heaven and earth profound stone under the plaza, Tang Zheng had dug up the entire plaza. Therefore, it was a complete mess. Seeing that, Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. The plaza was destroyed. Was the array still there? In the end, it proved that his worries were unnecessary. The array formation that Qiyu had set up was obviously not just on the surface. Even if the stone slabs on the surface of the plaza were all destroyed, the array formation was still intact. Tang Zheng summoned the 4 symbols venerable. When the gigantic body appeared, it immediately split into 2, then into 4, and then into 4. They automatically walked to the corresponding place and stopped moving. It was as if they had returned to their original appearance when they were protecting the shaman clan. Looking at this familiar scene, Tang Zheng could not help but feel a little absent-minded. He still remembered the shocking scene when he walked out of the house and saw the 4 symbols venerable for the first time. It will take at least a day for the 4 symbols venerable to fully recover, Qiyu said. Then we'll stay here for a day, Tang Zheng said without hesitation. The others agreed. Fortunately, these houses were built very firmly. Although they had been gone for a long time, they were not in a dilapidated state. After tidying them up, they could still be lived in. The Empyrean fairy seemed to like the environment here. She took a deep breath and said, "This place is much better than the big cities outside." Tang Zheng could not help but laugh. She was an ancient person and had long been used to the ancient environment. Of course, she would have such feelings. However, speaking of which, if the 100,000 mountains were developed, it would definitely be more beautiful than any scenic spot in the world. Of course, this was just his imagination. It was impossible to realize. There were still many monsters lurking in the 100,000 mountains. How could ordinary people get close? The Empyrean fairy leaped up like a dancing fairy. She flew up to the top of a branch and looked into the distance. Ling did not know why, but she pursed her lips and actually looked a little sad. Her eyes were red. Ling, what's wrong? Master, this place is very similar to my home. A long time ago, I lived in the mountains with my grandfather. The scenery there was also very beautiful. If my grandfather was still here, he would definitely like this place. Tang Zheng held Ling's hand and encouraged her. Ling, be good. Grandfather's spirit in heaven also wants to see you happy. Don't be sad. Ling nodded. Ling is not sad. Ling has a master. Ling is very happy. Master, you said that if I lived here, it would definitely be very interesting, just like when I was young. Ling spun around on the spot and smiled brightly. This is the old land of the witch clan. They have lived here for countless years, so they must have feelings for it. Although they are forced to leave their homes, this place must be a concern for them. If there is a chance in the future, we will return here and build this place up. Tang Zheng's heart moved, and this thought popped up in his mind. Tang Zheng stroked Ling's hair and laughed. That day will come. Really? Ling was overjoyed. Seeing Tang Zheng nod, her excited face flushed red. She hugged Tang Zheng's neck and kissed him on the face. Ugh. Tang Zheng froze on the spot, as if he had been immobilized. Ling was like a child who had done something wrong. She pursed her lips and said, Master, don't be angry with Ling. Ling couldn't help it, so she didn't notice. Looking at her aggrieved look, Tang Zheng sighed. She was an innocent little girl. This was just an expression of her emotions, and there was no deeper meaning. He let out a long sigh and nodded. Ling, don't cry. I don't blame you. Just remember not to kiss others in the future. It's not good. Ling nodded like she was pounding garlic. Ling will remember. Ling will never kiss others. She meant that she would only kiss Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't say anything, but from the corner of his eye, he noticed that the Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi were looking at him from afar. Tian Chanzi even had a meaningful smile on his face, which made Tang Zheng roll his eyes helplessly. Who knew what this old guy was thinking about? Master, look at the four symbols venerable. Langer called out suddenly. Tang Zheng quickly looked over, and saw the four symbols venerable's body emitting a faint glow. He was overjoyed. It really worked. This time Qiyu didn't lie to him. Since the inner demon said that the four symbols venerable was so powerful, then he probably hadn't used its full power yet. He would have to slowly discover its power in the future. Master, look at your feet. Langer called out again. Tang Zheng looked down, and found that there were still no changes on the ground. He hurriedly circulated his energy, and found that a surge of energy was flowing toward the four symbols venerable. The energy of the ley lines. Tang Zheng immediately remembered what Qiyu said. This was the formation gathering the energy of the ley lines, which was the spiritual energy in the soil. I am master, look at Ling. Wow, good job. Something is drilling into the soles of Ling Er's feet. Suddenly Ling Er made a big fuss and giggled incessantly. Hee, so comfortable. It also feels like I'm scratching an itch. Wow, master, my true energy is increasing. Really? Tang Zheng was shocked. Although he felt the surge of energy flowing through his feet, he didn't have the slightest reaction. Ling Er actually had a reaction. It was really strange. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. That's right, since this energy could be injected into the four symbols venerable, then it could also be used by Ling Er. Because Ling Er was transformed from a ginseng, absorbing the spiritual energy in the soil was a natural thing. Ling Er, focus and absorb as much of this energy as possible, Tang Zheng instructed. Yes, Ling Er will listen to master. Ling Er nodded and circulated her energy. In an instant Ling Er's body was suffused with a sparkling and translucent light. Roots actually grew from her feet and pierced into the ground. The energy entered her body through the roots. Upon seeing this, the Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi also gathered around and watched this scene curiously. Tian Chanzi clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "This girl is really lucky. Just now, I took a look at this large formation. It's really amazing. The spiritual energy in the entire 100,000 mountains is converging here. Qiyu set up this formation in the past is really too amazing. When this converging energy enters the body, it will quickly transform into vital qi and increase the cultivation level. It's much faster than this girl's cultivation speed." The Empyrean Fairy also nodded. This is her opportunity. It's harder for plants to cultivate into spirits than animals, because animals have their own consciousness. With consciousness, cultivation will be much easier. It's very difficult for plants to cultivate their own consciousness, so the demonic beasts you see are almost all animals. Tang Zheng suddenly understood. He hadn't thought about this problem before. It turned out that Ling Er's current situation was really a huge opportunity. She's simple and honest, so it's a blessing for her to be taken in by you. You can protect her. Otherwise, if she falls into the hands of other people or demonic beasts, she'll be a great tonic. Eating her will not only increase one's lifespan, but also increase one's power. Tang Zheng's head trembled, and he said, "Stop, don't say any more. I'll protect Ling Er and not let her come to any harm." Chapter 854. As time passed, Ling Er's entire body was bathed in a burst of light. When the sky gradually darkened and the light dissipated, her eyes flashed with a bright light. Her face immediately blossomed into a smile as she cheered. "Master, Ling Er has become powerful." Saying this, she stretched out her arm and a vine shot out from her palm. With a bang, it struck a distant rock and the rock immediately shattered. This move was as fast as lightning and as powerful as thunder. It was definitely a realm only an expert could reach. Tang Zheng stared at her without blinking and cried out in surprise, "Ling Er, your cultivation has actually reached the 9th grade of Anidia." Ling Er's original cultivation was only at the early stage of Anidia. Now she had actually jumped to the 9th grade of Anidia. It was truly a rocket speed. "You're much more powerful than me." Tang Zheng sincerely praised. Ling Er's face was like a peach blossom as she happily said, Linger is not as powerful as Master. Master is the most powerful. The two of you should stop flattering each other. Linger is in a special situation. The array formation in this square is indeed extraordinary. The power it gathers is no small matter. In addition, Linger's body is a condensation of heaven and earth's spiritual energy. Naturally, her ability to absorb and store energy is much stronger than normal people. Otherwise, if a normal person absorbed so much energy, they would probably have exploded long ago. Empyrean Fairy explained. Tang Zheng suddenly understood. So that's how it is. No matter what, Linger's cultivation has greatly increased. This is something worth celebrating. In the future, she will at least have the ability to protect herself. Linger was like Tang Seng's meat. If she did not have the ability to protect herself, anyone could take a bite out of her. That would be truly dangerous. The night was like water. Everyone went to bed early. Tomorrow morning, the four symbols venerables would finish repairing. In the night, rustling sounds could be heard in the forest. Little White, who was lying on Tang Zheng's bed, twitched its ears and immediately stood up. It stared out of the window and squeaked. Tang Zheng got up and touched Xiaobai, saying, "There's movement." Xiaobai nodded seriously. Looks like the 100 Faces Star Sovereign realized that he was tricked by me, so he chased after me. Tang Zheng said thoughtfully. He got off the bed and walked out, only to find that the other three had also come out. They looked at each other and Tang Zheng said, "The 100 Faces Star Sovereign is here. Let's make sure he doesn't return this time." The Empyrean Fairy said. She knew how powerful the 100 Change Star Lord was, so she did not swear that she would definitely get rid of him. For experts of their level, it was easier said than done to get rid of him. The noise in the forest grew louder and louder, rumbling as if there was a magnificent army. Bang, bang, bang. Rows of tall trees were snapped in half. Pairs of cold eyes sparkled in the night like burning willow. Wisps. Tang Zheng, get the hell out here. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign's roar came from afar, and the sound waves rushed over. The high walls of the witch tribe were actually shaken by the sound waves, making creaking sounds. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign slowly rose into the air, looking down at everything in the tribe from above. He happened to see Tang Zheng and the others. When enemies met, their eyes were exceptionally red. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign's eyes were filled with killing intent as he said, "Tang Zheng, how dare you lie to me? You even dare to lie and say that you are the inner demons. Although I don't know what method you used, the inner demons are already dead." "Nonsense, you're the one who's dead." The inner demons were indignant, but they could only complain to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng took a few steps forward, looked at the 100 Faces Star Sovereign in the air, and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Are you really so sure that the inner demons are dead? If you guessed wrong, then your life will be in danger." Now that things have come to this, do you still want to lie to me? Everything you say and do along the way cannot escape my eyes and ears. Do you think I don't know? If you were the inner demons, then the people around you would have died long ago, or become your slaves. Tang Zheng nodded and laughed in ridicule. Hee, you've actually become smarter. You finally admit it. You're so daring to play with me. Today I'll let you die in this 10,000 mountains. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign said resolutely. Tang Zheng asked with a smile. Do you think you can kill us all? The 100 Faces Star Sovereign's eyes flickered as he said, My demonic beast's army will definitely crush all of you. With that, he waved his hand and immediately gave the signal to attack. With a rumble, groups of demonic beasts tried to attack the tribe's walls. Everyone be careful, Tang Zheng reminded. Just as he was about to rush up, he realized that someone had beaten him to it. The Empyrean Fairy's figure flashed, and like an arrow leaving the bow, she shot towards the 100 Faces Star Sovereign and shouted, He's mine, no one can snatch him from me. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign also faced the Empyrean Fairy and shouted, Since you dare to challenge me, I'll let you know how powerful I am. With a wave of his hand, the aura of heaven and earth changed in an instant. A cloud of water vapor condensed, and directly turned into a ferocious beast, and bit towards the Empyrean Fairy's face. The Empyrean Fairy's hand flashed, and the mountain river map appeared in her hand. She threw it into the sky, and with a flash of light, the beast disappeared without a trace, sucked into the mountain river map. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign's eyes flickered, and he said in surprise, what a powerful magic treasure, it's actually a sacred weapon. Do you think you're the only one with a sacred weapon? As soon as he finished speaking, the air in front of the 100 Faces Star Sovereign shook, and a black light flashed, and a black banner appeared. There were complicated patterns on the banner, and it gave off a mysterious feeling. I'll let you have a taste of the power of my sky water banner. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign shouted, and with a wave of his arm, the banner flickered, and in the originally clear night sky, there was a bright moon, and the moonlight was like silver. Suddenly, a strong wind blew, and heavy rain poured down. The strangest thing was that there were no clouds in the sky. The pattering raindrops seemed to contain a mysterious power, falling from the sky, and all of them were directed at the Fairy of the 9 Heavens. The Empyrean Fairy became the target of public criticism, but her expression did not change, and she shouted, "Mountain River Map, absorb!" The Mountain River Map produced a terrifying suction force, and the overwhelming raindrops were all sucked into it, but the Empyrean Fairy was unharmed. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign did not care and shouted angrily, "This Mountain River Map is really not simple, but I haven't used the power of my Sky Water Banner yet. Continue to take the attack." The Sky Water Banner shook, and for no reason, a flood fell from the sky, as if it had the power to destroy everything. Like a raging dragon, it rushed toward the Empyrean Fairy. The Empyrean Fairy's expression turned cold, knowing that the power of this attack was far stronger than before. She did not dare to be careless and shouted, "Do you think you're the only one who can summon water? My mountain river map contains everything in the world. How can it not have water?" She pointed her finger at the stately painting, and a torrential flood rushed out from the painting to meet the water column that was like a raging dragon. Boom! The two water columns collided in mid-air, and it was difficult to tell who would win, and they were in a stalemate. Both sides gritted their teeth and kept urging their power, trying to defeat each other in one go. However, this was obviously an extravagant hope. The two were evenly matched, and this kind of battle was a battle of attrition. As for the others, they had already chosen their opponents. Tian Chanzi originally wanted to deal with the giant, but Tang Jing beat him to it, and had already fought with the giant. Tian Chanzi had to fight with the other monstrous beasts. His power had increased greatly, and he was now a 9th grade Yuanying, which was far stronger than these monstrous beasts. Therefore he was no match for them at all. One by one, the monstrous beasts fell at his feet, and blood flowed like a river. Linger did not stay out of it. She had never fought before, but now that her power had increased greatly, she could not help but join in the battle. There were also some monstrous beasts whose cultivation was lower than hers, so she had already defeated a few of them. However, there were many monstrous beasts, and it was her first battle, so she could not help but be flustered. In a moment of carelessness, a monstrous beast sneaked up on her from behind and slapped her with its claw, as if it wanted to smash her into a pile of minced meat. Squeak, squeak. Little White's voice suddenly rang out. A beam of fire shot up into the sky, and the raging flames wrapped around the demonic beast. It let out a miserable cry and hurriedly retreated. How could it have the chance to attack Ling? Tang Zheng had specially instructed Xiao Bai to protect Ling. Xiao Bai was dutiful. How could he let these monstrous beasts succeed? Tang Zheng's battle was also very intense. The giant relied on its huge body to suppress him everywhere, causing Tang Zheng to not dare to let his guard down. However, his War Soul Sword had already become a sacred artifact. Even if it was the same heaven-flying immortal sword technique, its power would multiply in his hands. Swish, swish, swish. The War Soul Sword had already opened a few huge wounds on the giant's body, causing blood to flow out. The giant roared a few times, but it did not fall down. Instead, its ferocious nature was aroused, and the more it fought, the braver it became. The giant did not have any magic treasures, and completely relied on its own body. Moreover, its body was as tough as steel, and if not for the War Soul Sword being incomparably sharp, it would not have been able to harm it. The giant's lantern-like eyes stared fixedly at Tang Zheng, and its fists and feet immediately followed the direction of its eyes and attacked Tang Zheng. Bang! The attack missed, and a deep pit appeared on the ground. His arm directly swept across the city wall. And with a boom, a large hole appeared on the city wall. Tang Zheng was shocked. This big guy's attack power was not inferior to the Four Symbols' Venerable One, and it had its own consciousness. If it was a one-on-one fight, it would be even stronger than the Four Symbols' Venerable One. The Four Symbols' Venerable One still needed his control in order to have such a powerful fighting strength. In ancient times, when the giant clan still existed, there were still quite a few of these giants. It could be seen how tragic the battle was. At the very least, the scene he saw from Qi Yu's illusion was deeply engraved in his memory, something he would never forget for the rest of his life. When the giant saw that he was unable to attack Tang Zheng from beginning to end, and that his body had been cut by the War Soul Sword instead, he was both angry and anxious. His attacks became even more ferocious, as if he had gone mad. In an instant, the city wall was almost completely destroyed by him, and deep pits of varying sizes appeared on the ground, as if it had been struck by a meteorite. Although Tang Zheng was unable to kill his opponent immediately, fighting with an expert of this level was quite helpful in increasing his fighting strength. The more he fought, the braver he became, and the more proficient he became in the heaven-flying immortal's sword technique. The horizon gradually lit up, and when the first ray of sunlight shone on the ground, all that could be seen was a scene of devastation and corpses everywhere. Boom. Chapter 855. The Four Symbols Venerable opened his eyes. His eyes flickered with light as if they were alive. This was something that had never happened before. Boom. The Four Symbols Venerables moved at the same time. They leaped over the crumbling walls and arrived in front of the giant. The giant was even taller than the four divine beasts. However, the four divine beasts exerted their strength together and coordinated their steps as if they were one. Boom. Boom. Four hammer-like fists hit the giant's waist. Roar. The Four Symbols Venerable let out a heart-wrenching scream as he staggered backwards. However, the Four Symbols Reverend did not give the giant a chance to catch his breath. With a flash of his body, he immediately grabbed the giant's four limbs. Thump! The giant fell to the ground, causing the ground to tremble incessantly. It even crushed the few demonic beasts below into meat patties. Tang Zheng watched this scene in astonishment. In the past, the Four Symbols Venerables required him to personally control them in order to unleash their enormous power. However, at this very moment, without his control, the might of the Four Symbols Supreme Beasts was even greater than before. Moreover, he saw a trace of spiritual aura in the Four Symbols Venerable's eyes. It was as if the Four Symbols Venerable truly possessed life. This was something that had never happened before. The eyes of the Four Symbols Venerables had always been filled with chaos. They did not have eyes at all. However, at this moment, they seemed to be human. Not only has the Four Symbols Venerable recovered, his strength has also increased by a level. In fact, he has even gained consciousness. Tang Zheng's heart thumped violently. When the inner demons had told him about the four divine beasts, he had thought that the four divine beasts must have had consciousness. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, the Four Symbols Venerables actually recovered their consciousness. This was truly too amazing. With self-awareness, the Four Symbols' strength was clearly a level higher than Tang Zheng's control. His eyes were burning. He wanted to go up and help, but he found that there was no need for him. The giant's four limbs were grabbed by the Four Symbols Venerable. It struggled incessantly, trying to break free and regain its freedom. However, the Four Symbols Venerables held him firmly, so he couldn't break free at all. Moreover, the Four Symbols Venerables all ran in different directions. Boom. Boom. The ground trembled. The Four Symbols Venerables were like wild horses that had broken free of their reins. Not only were they powerful, but they were also very fast. Tang Zheng had a flash of inspiration in his mind, and a word popped up in his mind: dismemberment by 5 horses. This scene was the best example. The four supremes each charged toward the other, and in an instant the giant's body was straightened. His struggle instantly became more and more intense. Clearly, he understood that he was at a critical juncture of life and death. However, The four symbols' venerables continued to flee silently, leaving behind deep tracks on the ground. They did not give the giant any chance to retaliate at all. Roar! The giant let out a heart-wrenching scream as streaks of blood appeared on its body. Bang! A muffled sound rang out as the giant exploded from within. Blood filled the air as it was split into 4 large pieces. It couldn't be any more dead. Tang Zheng swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He was deeply shocked by this scene. The ferocity of the four symbols' venerable far exceeded his imagination. Moreover, the violent and vicious aura they emitted caused him to be shocked. This murderous aura was condensed from countless battles. It was definitely not something that could be cultivated overnight. The four symbols venerable threw away the severed limbs in disgust and suddenly turned their heads. 4 pairs of eyes looked at Tang Zheng in unison. Tang Zheng's heartstrings trembled. Those eyes contained a soul-stirring demonic power. Even with his firm will, his heart could not help but sway. Bang bang bang. The four symbols venerable walked toward Tang Zheng in unison, emitting a biting cold murderous aura and vicious aura. Tang Zheng's brows furrowed. He had a bad premonition. The four symbols venerable seemed to have broken free from his control. Tang Zheng, the four symbols venerable has already regained consciousness. It's my demonic pet. I'll lend it to you for the time being. Qiyu's voice rang out. There was a hint of pride in it. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He said, "You're saying that the four symbols venerable only listens to your orders?" Hehe, of course. It's my demonic pet, so of course it only listens to my orders. However, I'm temporarily residing in your body right now, so I'll lend it to you, Qiyu said. Tang Zheng did not comment. He hurriedly circulated his inner energy. With a thought, he attempted to communicate with the four symbols venerable and control it. However, his eyes immediately dimmed. There was actually no reaction at all. The mysterious connection from before had completely vanished. He felt dejected. He did not think that restoring the four symbols venerable this time would cause such an unforeseen event. He did not know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. The good thing was that he would have such a powerful helper in the future. The bad thing was that the four symbols venerable no longer listened to his orders. Qiyu, so you already had this in mind when you told the young man how to restore the four symbols venerable. Hehe, you're really cunning. The inner demons jumped out and said jokingly. Inner demons, don't talk nonsense. In the past, the four symbols venerable did not truly awaken. This time, with the help of the formation, it absorbed enough energy and awakened its consciousness. This is also a coincidence. Qiyu immediately retorted. Tang Zheng remained silent. He could not guess whether this was Qiyu's doing on purpose for the time being. In any case, he would always be on guard against the two of them. The four symbols venerable looked down at Tang Zheng from above. Tang Zheng raised his head and looked at it. When their gazes met, Tang Zheng dismissed all distracting thoughts and ordered, "Deal with those monsters." The four symbols venerable did not say anything. It turned around and attacked the monster horde. Tang Zheng could not figure it out anyway, so he might as well make the most of it. As for what would happen in the future, who could say for sure? With the addition of the four symbols venerables, the exhausted cultivators who had been besieged by the demonic beasts relaxed. They watched as the four symbols venerables slaughtered the demonic beasts in every direction. Their 4 gigantic bodies were like killing machines, extremely efficient. The corpses of the monsters were scattered all over the forest. Some were hanging from the treetops, some were in large pits, and some were lying in the ruins of the city walls. Tang Zheng turned his gaze and stared at the Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Faces Star-Lord who were fighting fiercely in the air. The two of them had already exchanged countless blows. All sorts of abilities were thrown back and forth. It was extremely intense. Tang Zheng could not help but sigh in amazement. A battle of this level was truly fascinating. He could not help but look forward to when he could become so powerful. The Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Faces Star-Lord had profound cultivation. After fighting for half the night, they were not tired at all. They were still surrounded by danger. The four symbols venerable's sky water banner summoned a torrential flood. After the Empyrean Fairy summoned the flood, she also summoned a huge mountain. It fell from the sky and smashed directly at the 100 Faces Star-Lord. The 100 Faces Star-Lord continuously channeled his power. The sky-water banner flickered and the torrential flood blocked the huge mountain. However, the huge mountain was too heavy. It fell bit by bit, and the water spread in all directions. Boom! The water exploded and the huge mountain fell heavily. The 100 Faces Star-Lord was directly crushed under the mountain. The ground shook violently as if there was an earthquake. The four symbols Venerable was crushed under the mountain. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Tang Zheng was extremely shocked. He glanced at Tian Chanzi and Linger from the corner of his eyes. Linger was already dumbfounded. Her cherry mouth was wide open and her little tongue was sticking out. The mountain river map is actually so powerful. It can even summon a huge mountain. What else is in the map? The mountain river map was different from ordinary magic treasures. It had its own universe. It was like another world. It had mountains, rivers, plants, and trees, and could be summoned for one's own use. Tang Zheng had also obtained the mountain river map before, but he could not use these magical powers. The Empyrean fairy's expression didn't relax. She was still serious as she stared at the mountain without blinking. Suddenly, the huge mountain shook. Even the ground shook as if there was an earthquake. Tang Zheng was shocked. He knew that the 100 Faces Star-Lord was not dead even after being crushed by the huge mountain. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion rang out as the mountain exploded. Rubble flew everywhere like meteors, shooting in all directions. Dodge! Tang Zheng stomped out and hurriedly stood in front of Linger to protect her. With the holy armor shield in front of him, a series of pung, pung, pung sounds rang out as wave after wave of powerful energy surged out from the holy armor shield. The sorcerer tribe was in ruins. It was as if they had been hit and collapsed. There were deep pits on the ground, like the surface of the moon. The sorcerer tribe was the root of the sorcerer tribe. Now that it was destroyed, Tang Zheng was heartbroken. If the sorcerer tribe saw this, they would be heartbroken. The rain of rocks stopped. Tang Zheng removed the holy armor shield. The ground in front of him had completely caved in. It was a huge pit. The celestial master of 100 Faces stood in the pit in a sorry state. His clothes were in a mess, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His originally delicate face had turned blue, and his eyes seemed to spit fire as he stared at the Empyrean maiden. Where did your mountain river map come from? Why is it so powerful? The 100 Faces Star-Lord roared angrily. The Empyrean fairy snorted and did not answer. Seeing this, the 100 Faces Star-Lord was angry and anxious. Obviously, the mountain river map was more powerful than his celestial water banner. Their cultivation levels were almost the same, but due to the difference in their treasures, he was no match for the Empyrean fairy. He was not reconciled. Previously, he was infatuated with the inner demons and was scared. Then he was played by Tang Zheng. Now he was defeated by the Empyrean fairy who came out of nowhere. He was in a sorry state. This was simply a great humiliation. One had to know that even in ancient times, Multiform Star-Lord was a ruthless character. He had always been the one to bully others, and no one had ever bullied him. Therefore, he treated those weaker than him as toys. Back in Mount Buzhou, he wanted to keep Tang Zheng and the others as his toys. But now he realized that the power of the toys was too strong. It was beyond his imagination and his life was in danger. Run. Although he was burning with anger, he did not completely lose his mind. He knew that staying here would not do him any good. Moreover, Tang Zheng and the others were watching from the side. He was especially wary of the four symbols Reverend. Just now, the four symbols Reverend had cleanly dismembered the giant he had painstakingly resurrected. This scene immediately reminded him of the stories he had heard about the four symbols Reverend before he was imprisoned in Mount Buzhou. The four symbols Reverend was not a kind person. He was ferocious and cruel. Moreover, the four symbols Reverend who now had his own consciousness was not the same as before. He was definitely a big threat to him. Chapter 856. 100 changed Star Sovereign's expression changed when his thoughts were seen through. However, he pretended to be calm and said, I think you're the one who wants to escape. Empyrean Fairy laughed mockingly and said, Is that so? Then let's see who will escape. With a point of her finger, The mountain and river map flew toward 100 Change Star Sovereign. The light of 100 Change Star Sovereign's sky water banner was very dim, and was far inferior to the mountain and river map. Seeing the mountain and river map flying over, 100 Change Star Sovereign did not dare to argue anymore. He jumped out of the deep pit and fled into the forest. Tang Zheng and the others were dumbfounded. This 100 Change Star Sovereign was really a genius. He was still vowing to kill the Empyrean Fairy a second ago, and the next second, he was running away like a rabbit. He really escaped. Do you think I'll let you have your way? Empyrean Fairy said coldly. Just as she was about to chase after him, she heard a buzzing sound coming from the forest. The demonic beasts that had escaped were actually running back. Even 100 Change Star Sovereign retreated in a sorry state, with an ugly look on his face. Whoosh! 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 A few huge demonic beasts' heads flew out from the forest and landed heavily on the ground, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Empyrean Fairy stopped abruptly and looked suspiciously at the dense forest. Even Tang Zheng and the others quieted down and stared intently at the front. The buzzing sound became louder and louder. A few trees fell to the ground and a few spinning things appeared in the sky. The buzzing sound came from these things. These things looked like bamboo hats but were much bigger than bamboo hats. It was unknown how they could fly in the sky. What are these? The few of them muttered in their hearts. They could actually force the demonic beasts to retreat. Even 100 Change Star Sovereign had retreated. Tang Zheng and the others looked at each other and shook their heads. Obviously, they did not know what these things were. 100 Change Star Sovereign's shoulder was dyed red. This was the blood that was not there earlier. Could it be that he was injured by these bamboo hat-like things? What was it that could injure 100 Change Star Sovereign? The few of them became nervous. Rustle! With a slight noise, a few silhouettes came out of the forest and stood at a distance. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank because he saw a familiar face, Fairface Flying Dragon. Fairface Flying Dragon had disappeared without a trace after they parted ways in the mausoleum of the first Qin Emperor. As for his origin, Tang Zheng had no idea. Seeing him again today, Tang Zheng couldn't help but be surprised. Fairface Flying Dragon had nearly died at the hands of Qin Shi Huang previously. Who knew what he was up to this time? Tang Zheng's gaze swept past him, then he looked at the others. They were all unfamiliar faces. And the person standing at the very front was wearing a mask. A mask? Tang Zheng's heart stirred as he faintly remembered the information he had searched for in Jian Shisan's mind using the soul-searching technique. Azure Dragon Hall's High Lord. Wasn't he just wearing a mask all the time? Could it be that Fairface Flying Dragon was from the Azure Dragon Hall? Actually, Fairface Flying Dragon was so powerful. In this world, other than the Azure Dragon Hall, there was no other place that had such a powerful martial artist. As for the other unfamiliar faces, as well as the bamboo hat that was spinning in the air, it made Tang Zheng think of another thing. Flying Guillotine. Legend had it that the Flying Guillotine was the most mysterious assassin team in the Azure Dragon Hall. Every one of them was at least a master-level martial artist, but no one had seen them in these past few years. This was probably the Flying Guillotine of the Azure Dragon Hall. 100 Change Star Sovereign stopped and asked in a flustered and exasperated manner, "Who are you people?" The High Lord took a step forward and said indifferently, "Azure Dragon Hall." His voice was neither fast nor slow, but it was full of pressure. It was as if he was speaking beside everyone's ears, causing their eardrums to hurt. "So you are from the Azure Dragon Hall." Although 100 Change Star Sovereign lived in seclusion, he had already heard the name of this organization. What martial artists? In ancient times, martial artists and cultivators were of the same origin, but now they are killing each other. 100 Change Star Sovereign said. The High Lord said meaningfully, "With the times, this society is progressing. The situation in ancient times does not represent the current situation. Moreover, you cultivators have to fight to the death, so why can't we martial artists fight to the death with you cultivators? That depends on whether or not you have the ability." 100 Change Star Sovereign said hatefully. The High Lord laughed strangely and pointed at the bloodstain on 100 Change Star Sovereign's shoulder. "Haven't you already seen it? That was because you ambushed me. I was careless and fell into your trap." 100 Change Star Sovereign angrily roared. Just now, he was only concerned with escaping from the Empyrean maiden. But he did not expect to be surrounded by the flying guillotine that fell from the sky as soon as he entered the forest. The flying guillotine almost wrapped around his head. If it had really wrapped around his head, he was afraid that his head would have been separated from his body. Fortunately, he had discovered it in time and quickly dodged. Otherwise, his shoulder would have been injured more than this. This group of people had a strong background. If it was one-on-one, 100 Change Star Sovereign was confident that he could deal with them all. However, when they were together, their strength was multiplied. Moreover, he had gone through an entire night of fighting and killing, so he had consumed a lot of energy. Moreover, he was already injured under that huge mountain, which was why he was in such a difficult situation. The High Lord laughed in a low voice. 100 Change Star Sovereign, if you are injured, then so be it. You still have so many excuses. This is not the style of an ancient expert. 100 Change Star Sovereign's eyes trembled. You seem to know me quite well. Of course. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. I know a little bit about everyone's background. Otherwise, how would I dare to come here? The High Lord was full of confidence. Is that so? You really think that these people can deal with me? The High Lord said. Not only to deal with you, but also those people. He pointed at Tang Zheng and the others. Tang Zheng and the others' pupils shrank as they stared at the High Lord. This stance was really big. The Azure Dragon Hall had always been mysterious. It was fine if they did not appear, but when they did, they actually planned such a big scheme. It was shocking and also amazing the other party's ambition. The Empyrean fairy stared at the other party. You boast that you know all of us. Could it be that you know me as well? The Great Lord pointed at the fair-faced flying dragon beside him and said, My Azure Dragon Hall's fair-faced flying dragon has met the mysterious maiden of the 9 heavens once. Of course, I can trace your origin and know your origin. The Empyrean fairy's eyes flashed as she stared at fair-faced flying dragon without blinking, saying, I never thought that you would actually be able to escape from Qin Shi Huang's Taiya sword. Fair-faced flying dragon chuckled. With a flick of his wrist, sword light flashed and a long sword filled with killing intent was placed horizontally in front of his chest. Taiya sword. Tang Zheng and the Empyrean fairy cried out in alarm at the same time. Back then, Qin Shi Huang had used the Taiya sword to kill fair-faced flying dragon. Later on, the connection between the sword and the Qin Shi Huang was severed, and its whereabouts were unknown. It turned out that fair-faced flying dragon had used some unknown method to steal the Taiya sword. Tang Zheng was incomparably shocked. He had seen the Taiya sword's might before. Moreover, ever since he knew about saint weapons, he was certain that the Taiya sword was a saint weapon. Such a peerless saint weapon had actually fallen into fair-faced flying dragon's hands. Didn't this mean that his strength had increased greatly? In truth, fair-faced flying dragon had taken the risk to enter Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum in order to seize the Taiya sword. In the end, Qin Shi Huang had used the sword to kill him, which was exactly what he wanted. He had already thought of a foolproof plan to seize the Taiya sword. How could he fail? Thus, he secretly stole the Taiya sword. By the time Qin Shi Huang discovered it, it was already too late. At that time, fair-faced flying dragon had already escaped. Fair-faced flying dragon would naturally inform the High Lord of what had happened in Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum. With the Azure Dragon Hall's power, it would not be difficult for them to find out the origins of the Empyrean fairy. Fair-faced flying dragon proudly laughed. The two of you even recognized this sword. Back then, it was all thanks to you two holding back Qin Shi Huang that I had the chance to seize this sword. In truth, I never thought that Qin Shi Huang would be able to come back from the dead. If it wasn't for you two, I would have been killed by him. Speaking of which, I really have to thank the two of you. Tang Zheng angrily said. Fair-faced flying dragon, don't be so smug. Back then, you escaped so quickly, and now you're jumping out with such pride. In my opinion, the Azure Dragon Hall is only SOSO. The High Lord's gaze was cold as he stared at Tang Zheng, saying, The Azure Dragon Hall is not something you can judge. Tang Zheng, in fact, I have already met you for a long time. Met for a long time? Where? Tang Zheng curiously asked. However, at that time, you were only a baby in swaddling clothes. You were born with the nine-yang saint body. This kind of person is a genius rarely seen in 10,000 years. How could I let you live? Thus, I ordered the martial sect's previous sect leader to kill you. Tang Zheng's heart beat wildly as killing intent leaked out from his eyes. He clenched his fists until they made popping sounds. The two of them already had a feud. Back then he was almost killed because of him. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and said, "You must be very regretful that you couldn't kill me." "There is a bit of regret. I never thought that Wu Junshan would be so powerful as to deceive everyone and allow you to escape." The High Lord sighed. Tang Zheng thought about the torture he suffered when he was young, and how he was lucky enough to almost lose his life. He was so angry that his eyes were about to spit fire. "You hate me, don't you? No, you should be thanking me. If I didn't want to kill you, how could you have been sent out of the martial sect? How could you have such a fortuitous encounter today? Bah, you still want me to thank you? Keep dreaming. Your achievements today have truly exceeded my expectations. If I knew your true identity earlier, I would have killed you earlier. It's just that your development has far exceeded my expectations, so I want to see just how far your nine-yang saint body can go. Unfortunately, the situation is becoming more and more chaotic. Even the Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Star Lord have come out. I have no choice but to take action. Otherwise, if the chaos continues, it will not be good. As for you, I can still let you live because the Azure Dragon Hall has been peaceful for so many years. It is time for you to move around a bit. A blade that has been left out for too long has become blunt and rusty. It needs to be sharpened by a whetstone to become sharper. You are using me as a whetstone. You really are boasting shamelessly. Be careful that I don't break this blade of yours." Tang Zheng was furious. This High Lord gave off an unfathomable feeling. He could not see through him at all. Chapter 857. Through the mask, the High Lord's eyes were filled with a disdainful smile, and said, "A whetstone is a whetstone in the end. It is difficult to compare with a blade. Tang Zheng, if you retreat quickly, I can spare your life." Pfft, wishful thinking. Tang Zheng spat out a mouthful of saliva. The High Lord laughed meaningfully. "Before I kill you, is anyone willing to tell me why you are gathered in the 10,000 huge mountains?" Tang Zheng suddenly realized that the other party did not know the purpose of their trip, nor did he know what happened in the canyon. "You won't know." Tang Zheng cleanly cut off the other party's thoughts. The High Lord did not mind. "I will always have a way to know. If we don't agree, let's get down to business first." With a wave of the High Lord's hand, shwa shwa shwa, the others all rushed out, and in an instant, there were more than 10 blood guillotines in the sky. "Tang Zheng, you killed the Sword God and the Sword 13, so you must know what this is. Today, I'll let you have a taste of it." Blood guillotine. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth. "Everyone be careful. This is a sharp weapon that New Era used to deal with cultivators. Many cultivators died under the blood guillotine." "What bullshit blood guillotine? If it wasn't for the sneak attack when I wasn't prepared, how could it have injured me?" The 100 Faces Star Lord roared. "100 Faces Star Lord, you and I are both cultivators. It's not too late to stop fighting after we deal with the people from the Azure Dragon Palace," Tang Zheng suggested loudly, wanting to form an alliance. 100 Faces Star Lord's eyes flickered. He hesitated for a moment, then agreed. "All right, I'll agree to it for the time being," Tang Zheng said in a low voice that only he could hear. 100 Faces Star Lord is very fickle. Even if he agrees, he can't believe it completely, so we have to be on guard against him at all times. Empyrean Fairy looked at Tang Zheng with approval, as if to say that he was not stupid enough to know that the 100 Faces Star Lord was not trustworthy. Hee hee, what a touching scene. Even sworn enemies can huddle together for warmth. If there are more such cultivators, then this world will really be in chaos. The Great Lord sneered. He moved later, but arrived first. He actually overtook the flying guillotine and pushed his hands forward. An earth-shattering aura swept over. What a powerful skill. Everyone had this thought at the same time. They had fought for an entire night, and had consumed a lot of energy. The other side was waiting for them to tire themselves out. Sure enough, they had the upper hand. My non-phase method has not been shown to anyone for many years. Today you are in for a treat. As soon as the High Lord finished speaking, that earth-shattering aura was already in front of them. The ruins on the ground flew up into the air, whizzing towards the crowd. Everyone, hide behind me. Tang Zheng roared and waved his hand in the air. The holy armor shield stood in the wind like a pillar, blocking in front of everyone. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign did not seem to want to waste his energy, so he hid behind the holy armor shield as well. However, he deliberately kept a distance from them. Bang bang bang. The holy armor shield kept vibrating. Every time it hit, Tang Zheng's heart would beat violently. His blood was almost boiling, and his face and ears were red. Squeak squeak. Xiao Bai was indignant. In order to share the pressure of Tang Zheng, he jumped up and spat out monstrous flames. The ruins turned into drops of heat in the flames and fell to the ground. The Empyrean Fairy activated the mountain river map. The map's suction force increased greatly, and a whirlwind blew. The ruins were sucked into the mountain river map. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign hid behind the crowd and watched coldly. He had no intention of helping. Tang Zheng, just take care of yourself. There is no need to be a shield for someone else. Tian Chanzi also shouted and stepped forward. Whoosh whoosh. A few black shadows suddenly appeared in the sky, the flying guillotine. They arranged themselves in a circle and descended with a whistling sound, aiming for the heads of the people. Be careful, the Empyrean Fairy yelled. She pointed her finger above her head and shot it at the flying guillotine. However, the flying guillotine was like a slippery loach, cleverly dodging it. The flying guillotine seemed to be scattered, but there was actually a formation among them. They were interchanging with each other, and were a whole. Tian Chanzi's eyes lit up. He said, the flying guillotine is maintained by the formation. If we break this formation, they will naturally fall apart. Formations were not only used by cultivators, but also by martial artists. They could also study formations, and use them in martial arts as well as when facing enemies. The Azure Dragon Palace had always been dealing with cultivators. Of course, they would not let go of such a method like formations. The opponents had more than a dozen Grandmaster warriors. If they fought alone, except for Ling, they would not be a match for the others. However, when they worked together and cooperated with the formation, their power increased sharply. The Great Lord was not surprised. He mocked. You saw through my formation. Do you think you can break it? The sky full of ruins had disappeared. The Great Lord was high in the air, looking down at them. He crossed his fingers and kept changing them. He is making hand seals. The Empyrean Fairy reminded. Making hand seals? Didn't cultivators make hand seals when they used some secret techniques? Seeing Tang Zheng's suspicious eyes, Tian Chanzi explained. Warriors and cultivators are the same. They can make hand seals. This is a common aspect. It's just that there are very few warriors who can make hand seals. This non-phase method is really strange. The Great Lord had finished making hand seals. His fingers crossed into a strange posture. He opened his mouth, and a sound came out of his mouth. Bang! It was a simple syllable. It seemed that he had used up all his strength to make this sound. Not only did his chest and abdomen resonate, but this sound resonated with the heaven and earth. It was shocking. This was the first time Tang Zheng had seen this kind of technique, and it was truly inconceivable. He was overwhelmed with shock as he felt a terrifying pressure descend from the heavens. Not only was it exerted on his body, it was also exerted on his spirit. For some reason, his movements slowed down as he watched the flying guillotine descend from the sky. However, he was powerless to stop it even though he had the will. Damn it! Tian Chanzi roared. His movements were half a beat slower, but he still wielded the long sword in his hand. Swish! The sword light broke through the sky and hit the flying guillotine. The flying guillotine was covered with a burst of blood, but it was not damaged at all. It was just that the momentum of the attack slowed down, giving Tian Chanzi time to dodge the attack. The Great Lord's attack was not a single attack. It was an indiscriminate and large-scale attack. The others were also affected, especially Ling Er. Her face was pale. The word almost shook her mind. The Fairy of the Nine Heavens and the 100 Transformations Star-Lord were the least affected. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord originally wanted to take advantage of the situation and not contribute if he could. However, as soon as the words were spoken, he knew that he could not stay out of this. Go! Empyrean Fairy summoned a flood and rushed to the flying guillotine above Tang Zheng's head. With a bang, the flying guillotine was hit, and Tang Zheng dodged a part of it. As for the flying guillotine that flew to Empyrean Fairy and 100 Faces Star-Lord, it did not hurt them. Although their movements were affected, it was not big. They finally understood that the flying guillotine's power was secondary. The most important thing was that the Great Lord's non-phase method was too strange. Combined with the flying guillotine, the lethality was really amazing. However, before they could catch their breath, the Great Lord opened his mouth again, and another word came out. Ma. It was like thunder exploding in their ears, making their heartstrings tremble. An even more terrifying pressure came from all directions. Tang Zheng's face turned as pale as paper. Ling, had softly fallen to the ground. This time, even Tian Chanzi's mouth twitched. What is the origin of this non-phase method? It's so strange. Empyrean Fairy and 100 Faces Star-Lord looked at each other and realized that this was an unprecedented crisis. If they had not experienced a night of battle, they would not be afraid. But after the battle, this was really a matter of life and death. Their movements also became slow. Ma. They had not yet moved when the third word came out. This time, not only did their movements become slow, but even their thinking was half a beat slower. Once his thoughts slowed down, his actions slowed down even more. It was even more difficult to avoid the flying guillotines that were eyeing him covetously. 4 symbols venerable, stop them for me, Tang Zheng growled, but found that the 4 symbols venerable was motionless, as if he had really turned into a stone statue. What's going on? Tang Zheng was aghast. Even the 4 symbols venerable had lost his effect. This non-phase method communicates with heaven and earth. Don't look at it with only a few words and simple syllables. Each syllable can be synchronized with heaven and earth's aura and achieve resonance. This is the key. I don't know who created such a magical technique. It's really a genius. Chiyu exclaimed. Don't just praise. Tell me, what should we do? Tang Zheng complained. This non-phase method seems to have a particularly obvious effect on the murderous aura. The 4 symbols venerable's murderous aura is the strongest, so when it is suppressed by this power, it is like a mountain. Don't count on it. There's a way. Tang Zheng could not help but interrupt. People with pure minds and no murderous intent may not be affected. Chiyu hurriedly said. The inner demon snorted. Is there anyone in this world who has no distracting thoughts and a pure mind to such a state? I have seen countless people, but I have never seen such a person. The world is so big, nothing is too strange. Inner demons, your words are too absolute. Chiyu retorted. Humph, then you find one for me to see. Chiyu was speechless. He sighed and said, this kind of person is really hard to find. However, from my observation, the Venerable Lord's non-phase method has not been used yet. I'm afraid there are other words behind it. As if to confirm his words, another word resounded through heaven and earth. This time, even ordinary people could feel a resonance between heaven and earth. Everyone's face changed. This kind of martial technique was unheard of and unseen. No wonder the Azure Dragon Palace Hall was so confident. They actually had such a big killing weapon. This time, the flying guillotine did not rashly fall down to attack them. It seemed to be brewing, waiting for the final blow. The Venerable Lord was still brewing. Obviously, there was still another move. Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. He constantly circulated his power to resist this strange power. However, the faster he circulated his power, the more violent the murderous aura in his heart surged. Instead, he felt more pressure. Chapter 858. Killing Intent. Who wouldn't have killing intent? Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. Suddenly, his gaze landed on Linger, who was lying on the ground, and an idea came to him. Linger's heart was pure, like a piece of white paper. Could she do it? But seeing her in pain on the ground, he had some doubts. But since things had come to this, he could only try his best to fight for that slim chance of survival. Linger, listen to me. Get rid of all distracting thoughts, maintain your original heart, and don't think about anything else. Tang Zheng's voice seemed to have a magical power. Linger gave an sound and hurriedly did as she was told. Wow, master, Linger is not feeling bad anymore. Linger stood up, extremely surprised. Her black eyes looked at Tang Zheng curiously, not knowing what was going on. Is there really a person with such a pure heart in this world? The inner demons could not help but exclaim. Qiyu suddenly understood and said, I understand. She had experienced a night of battle before, and her body was inevitably contaminated with murderous aura. Her temperament was affected, but her nature was simple and was not really affected, so Tang Zheng asked her to get rid of the distracting thoughts. She drove the contaminated murderous aura out of her body and restored her simple nature. This non-phase method naturally could not hurt her. Hearing that, Tang Zheng was overjoyed. This was truly a pleasant surprise, and immediately shouted, Linger, the enemy's divine arts are extremely strange. This time everyone will have to rely on you. Linger said in disbelief. Master, you guys are so powerful, but you still can't do anything. What can Linger do? Linger, you have to believe in yourself. There are some aspects in which you are stronger than us. Linger was extremely happy and nodded happily. Really? Linger had always thought that he was a burden, and needed the protection of his master everywhere. Linger is too happy to be able to share master's worries. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth twitched as he forced out a smile and said, Linger, use this heaven-shocking bow and shooting sun arrows to attack the High Lord. Tang Zheng summoned the two divine weapons and handed them to Linger. Linger held onto the divine weapon, her heart surging as she said, Master, Linger will definitely work hard. The shooting sun arrow was aimed at the High Lord, shining with a cold light. At this moment, the fourth word slipped out of his mouth. Bah. Linger was not affected at all. She pulled the shooting sun arrow into the shape of a full moon. She loosened her fingers and the shooting sun arrow shot through the sky. Fair-faced Flying Dragon had been watching coldly from the sidelines, waiting for the final moment to deal a fatal blow to his opponent. However, before he could reach the final juncture, he was shocked to find that there was actually one person who was not affected. This person's strength was obviously weaker than the others, but why was she not affected? Before he could figure it out, he saw the person pulling the bow and pulling the arrow. He knew that Tang Zheng had a divine bow, and this was definitely that divine bow. Fair-faced Flying Dragon's face turned pale when he saw the cold gleam of the arrow piercing through the air, aiming straight for the High Lord. Although the High Lord's non-phase method was powerful, when using it, one had to be completely focused. If someone was not affected and counterattacked, it would be fatal. At this moment, the High Lord was like a 3-year-old child, unable to resist at all. This was the shortcoming of the non-phase method, and Fair-faced Flying Dragon was very familiar with it. In the past, the crisis of this shortcoming did not erupt, because once the High Lord used the non-phase method, no one would not be affected. But the strange thing was that this time, there was actually someone who was not affected. The High Lord had instead become a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. High Lord, be careful. Fair-faced Flying Dragon roared and flew towards the High Lord, trying to intercept the shooting sun arrow. However, when he entered this space, his movements immediately slowed down. This was because he was also affected by this space. However, this shout finally awakened the High Lord, and his eyes suddenly swept towards the shooting sun arrow flying towards him. He wanted to dodge, but he was powerless. He could only watch the shooting sun arrow approach him. With a puff, the shooting sun arrow pierced through his left chest and went through his body. Ah! The High Lord screamed in pain and fell from the air. Everyone felt their bodies loosen, and they regained their freedom. Linger covered her mouth and looked at the scene in disbelief. She did not expect that it would actually succeed and resolve the crisis. Counterattack. Tang Zheng took the opportunity to shout, and stepped forward bravely. The War Soul Sword pierced out to meet the flying guillotine in the air. The flying guillotine also attacked with all its might. Puff. With a loud sound, the flying guillotine was split into 2 halves. The person controlling it on the ground spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face darkened. The Empyrean fairy recognized the High Lord, and her figure flashed as she attacked the High Lord. The High Lord clutched his chest and blood flowed out. His face showed annoyance and disbelief. Obviously, he did not expect that there would be someone who was not affected by his non-phase method. He was already injured, and was not the Empyrean fairy's opponent. He hurriedly retreated, but the Empyrean fairy followed him like a shadow, obviously wanting to get rid of him completely. "Stop, you are not allowed to hurt the High Lord," Fair-faced Flying Dragon roared, and the Taya sword slashed towards the Empyrean fairy. Facing the Taya sword, the Empyrean fairy did not dare to take it lightly. After all, it was a sacred tool. Moreover, she was very familiar with the Taya sword, and knew how powerful it was. "If you want to hurt the High Lord, you will have to step over my dead body." Fair-faced Flying Dragon was dead set on the High Lord, and his attitude was very firm. The Empyrean fairy snorted disapprovingly, and brought out the stately painting. A powerful suction force immediately enveloped Fair-faced Flying Dragon. Fair-faced Flying Dragon's expression suddenly changed. Whoosh! 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 Fair-faced Flying Dragon fiercely slashed a few times at the stately painting. The powerful sword chi stirred the air, trying to break free from the stately painting's restraint. However, it was all in vain. Fair-faced Flying Dragon was a first-grade martial emperor, which was equivalent to a first-grade Yuanying. There was a huge gap between him and the Empyrean fairy, who was in the divine transformation realm. He could not resist at all. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign involuntarily rose into the air and flew towards the stately painting. No matter how he struggled, it was futile. Seeing this, the High Lord gritted his teeth and spat out the word "me." The Empyrean fairy's movements were sluggish. Fair-faced Flying Dragon immediately broke free and landed on the ground, holding the High Lord. The High Lord weakly shouted, "Retreat." Fair-faced Flying Dragon madly rushed into the forest, and his voice came from afar. "The flying guillotine is behind, stop them." In order to buy time for the High Lord to escape, he did not hesitate to sacrifice the flying guillotine. "Change formation." More than a dozen martial masters shouted in unison. The flying guillotine changed formation in mid-air, and they shuttled back and forth. Their figures flickered, making it difficult to see clearly. "Attack!" With a loud shout, more than a dozen flying guillotine attacked the few people at once. They hummed and spun nonstop, like bloody mouths that were choosing people to devour. "A group of dragons without a leader, yet you still dare to provoke me. Humph, I'll kill you first and let you know the consequences of sneak attacking me." The 100 Faces Star Sovereign roared and rushed over. The celestial water banner shook, and a torrential flood appeared out of thin air, hitting the flying guillotine and breaking the formation. Once the formation was broken, more than a dozen martial masters were immediately revealed, and they were flustered. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign rushed in and killed 2 people with just a few moves. However, the 100 Faces Star Sovereign did not stop and rushed into the forest in the blink of an eye. "He's trying to escape," Tang Zheng shouted, wanting to chase after him, but was stopped by a few martial masters. "Damn it, get out of the way." Tang Zheng roared in exasperation, but the few of them were like a human wall, blocking in front of him, making it impossible for him to pass through. "Forget it, let's take care of these people first." After the Empyrean fairy finished speaking, she displayed her divine might, and Tianchanzi and the 4 symbols venerable did not hold back either, killing in all directions. The group of martial masters finally could not hold on any longer. Under the circumstances of paying the price of a few lives, they fled in all directions. Obviously, they knew that if they fled together, their chances of survival would be even slimmer. If they scattered and fled in all directions, there would always be someone who would be lucky enough to escape. This method was extremely rare. Tang Zheng had too few people on his side, and in the end, a few of them escaped. Tang Zheng did not care about these small fries, but in his heart, he gradually understood that there was a discrepancy in the information he searched in Jian Shisan's mind. It said that the flying guillotine was invincible, and many cultivators had died in their hands. Now it seemed that the flying guillotine was powerful, but that was because they had not faced experts like the Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Faces Star Sovereign. Otherwise, the flying guillotine could only flee in all directions. Perhaps the flying guillotine had to cooperate with the venerable lord to display its great power. Just like just now, if Linger had not insisted on coming together, then they would definitely have been in big trouble, and even had their heads cut off by the flying guillotine. Therefore, the rumors of the flying guillotine were not all nonsense. This was then and now, and the situation was different. Let's continue to chase after the venerable lord. Tang Zheng did not want to let the tiger return to the mountain, and said decisively. Several people agreed. They all had a lingering fear of his non-phase method, so they really wanted to leave him in the 100,000 mountains. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several people shuttled through the forest, like ghosts. Their speed was beyond imagination. Suddenly, the sound of fighting rang out in front of them. They were overjoyed and chased after it. However, they only saw a figure fleeing far away. It was obviously the multiform Star Sovereign. There were many corpses on the ground, and only one person was left standing. However, his body was dripping with blood, and he was in a sorry state. Long Xianyuan. Tang Zheng was secretly shocked. He recognized that the other party was actually the patriarch of the Long family, and those who died were probably also from the Long family. Why would the Long family be in the 100,000 mountains? Seeing Tang Zheng looking at him with an unfriendly expression, Long Xuanyuan's heart jumped wildly. This time, it was a very risky move for him to enter the 100,000 mountains. Although he grew up near the 100,000 mountains, his elders had warned him not to set foot in the 100,000 mountains. This time, he realized that Tang Zheng's purpose in coming to Dianan was not simple. In addition, Tang Zheng rushed into the 100,000 mountains in a hurry. He guessed that something big must have happened, so on a whim, he brought people to chase after him. What he discovered along the way was an eye-opener and a deep shock. However, before he could find Tang Zheng, he found a person holding a masked man in a hurry and slipped away from them in the blink of an eye. Long Xianyuan was shocked. There was actually such a strong martial artist, but before he could say a few more words, he realized that another child had rushed over. This child actually did not distinguish between right and wrong, and directly started killing his people. Of course, he wanted to stop it, but found that it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. However, after the child killed his men, before he could kill him, he was chased by the pursuers. In the next second, he saw that the pursuer was actually Tang Zheng. Chapter 859. Their eyes met, and Tang Zheng and Long Xianyuan looked at each other in disbelief. Why are you here? Tang Zheng's expression changed slightly, his two sword-like eyebrows were raised high, and he asked straightforwardly. He subconsciously thought of the conflict with Long Tingfei and Dianan. The Long family didn't have any reaction, so he didn't care too much. Now that he saw Long Xianyuan in the 10,000 mountains, he naturally thought that the other party was here for him. Long Xuanyuan's expression was complicated. The people he brought were all wiped out, and then he met Tang Zheng and the others. He knew that if he said something wrong, it would lead to serious consequences. Tang Zheng's strength was far superior to his. No one would know if he killed him in this desolate 10,000 mountains. Some time ago, there was a huge earthquake in the 10,000 mountains. I guessed that there must be a problem, so I came to investigate. Long Xianyuan replied without hesitation. This was indeed one of his goals. Who is he? Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi looked at Long Xianyuan lightly, not putting him in their eyes at all. Long Xianyuan also felt this contempt, but he didn't dare to refute. He had already guessed the identity of these two people. One was Tian Chanzi, and the other was the mysterious woman who helped him kill the sword god. Greater than or equal to. Even though Long Xianyuan had seen enough big battles in his life, he still couldn't help but feel nervous when he saw these two people. I am Long Xianyuan of the Dianan Long family. Long Xianyuan introduced himself modestly. When Tian Chanzi heard this, he didn't have much of a reaction at all. He said directly, "Why are we wasting time here? Hurry up and chase after the 100 Faces Star Lord. If we let him escape, it will be like looking for a needle in a haystack." The 100 Faces Star Lord was proficient in transformation techniques, and could transform into anyone. This was a skill that the 100 Faces Star Lord had never used before, so they were quite afraid. There's no need to chase. Empyrean Fairy suddenly said. He has already escaped into the vast 10,000 mountains. There is nowhere to find him. Tian Chanzi glared at Long Xianyuan with an unfriendly expression. Long Xianyuan felt as if he had been locked onto by the god of death, and a sense of fear involuntarily rose in his heart. It's all his fault. If he hadn't delayed us, the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign definitely wouldn't have been able to escape. Tian Chanzi said coldly. Long Xianyuan wanted to defend himself, but he found that he was not confident enough. But in the end, he took a deep breath and mustered up his courage. He said hesitantly, Senior, is that child called the 100 Change Star Lord? Actually, we can be considered to have delayed him a little. Although he lived in the vicinity of the 100,000 mountains, he did not know of the great name of the 100 Transformations Star Lord like the Azure Dragon Hall and the Li Palace. However, for a child to be called the 100 Transformations Star Lord and be so feared by these people, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Although he had doubts in his heart, he still tried his best to explain himself. He was deeply afraid that the other party would really put all the blame on him. You still dare to quibble? Tian Chanzi shouted angrily. Although he was usually very gentle to Tian Chanzi, and even a little disrespectful to him, when facing the unfamiliar Long Xianyuan, he was still very imposing, causing people to not dare to resist. Long Xianyuan didn't know how to respond, and the fear in his heart grew stronger and stronger. At this point, he finally understood that no matter what grudges he had with Tang Zheng had already left him far behind. If he recklessly wanted to take revenge, he was afraid that he would be the first to die, and then the unlucky ones would be the Long family. In fact, Long Xianyuan was very clear about what his son, Long Tingyu, had done. It was impossible to say that Long Tingyu's death had nothing to do with Tang Zheng, but it was a bit far-fetched to say that it had too much to do with him. Long Tingyu was actually reaping what he had sown, and had only himself to blame. Although Long Xianyuan was very unwilling to admit this, he knew that this was the cruel reality. He was smarter than the other patriarchs in that he wouldn't go to a dead end. Such a long time was enough for him to calm down and think clearly about the cause and effect. If he wasn't such a person, he wouldn't have trusted Mu Hongyan so much and handed over all the properties of the Long family to her, letting her, a person with a different surname, take care of them. Moreover, Tang Zheng had actually done a favor to the Long family, and Nana's life was saved by Tang Zheng. If he stubbornly dealt with Tang Zheng, not only would it be of no benefit to the Long family, it would also be ungrateful. As for Long Tingfei's death, how could the life and death of a side branch rice bucket affect Long Xuanyuan's heart much? If it was said that before he entered the 10,000 mountains this time, he still had some hope in his heart to see if he could create some trouble for Tang Zheng, but at this moment, this kind of thought had completely disappeared. He had already made up his mind to write off his grudge with Tang Zheng. He had saved Nana's life and Long Tingyu's death had cancelled each other out. But the crisis in front of him was that Tian Chanzi seemed to have blamed him for the escape of the 100 Faces Star Lord, causing him to be in trouble. Looking at Long Xuanyuan's twitching mouth, Tang Zheng couldn't help but think of Nana. After all, the other party was Nana's grandfather. Moreover, both of his sons had already died, so he was indeed a pitiful person. As for the Long family, Tang Zheng didn't think that they could threaten him now. Therefore, whether it was for the sake of Nana or Mu Hongyan, he was prepared to let Long Xianyuan go. Tang Zheng coughed and stood up. Long Xianyuan looked at him in shock, not knowing what he was going to do. He was terrified to find that not only was he facing Heaven Monk, even he was facing Tang Zheng. He was actually feeling fear in his heart, as if he was looking at a tall mountain. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He was really old, and he had to admit that he was old. Patriarch Long, I don't know why you entered the 10,000 mountains this time, but the 10,000 mountains is not a place you should come to. I'm sure you have experienced the danger just now. However, if you want to target me, you have to think twice before you act. For the sake of Nana and Sister Mu, I will not pursue this matter. Please do as you wish. Tang Zheng said. Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't pursue the matter, Long Xianyuan heaved a sigh of relief. He couldn't wait to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead and said, Tang Zheng, you misunderstood. I definitely didn't mean to target you. As for the grudge between you and the Long family, I have thought it through. Nana and Hongyan have been taken care of by you. I haven't personally thanked you yet. There's no need to thank me. Sister Mu has helped me a lot. Moreover, I like Nana very much. I have always treated her as a sister. Long Xianyuan heaved a sigh of relief. He really didn't have any resentment. He asked nervously. Then can I go and see Nana in the future? The older generation valued the inheritance of the family very much. Long Xianyuan only had one descendant left, Nana. In his heart, he missed her very much. Tang Zheng occasionally heard Nana mention her grandfather. He knew that Long Xianyuan had always treated her well. After pondering for a while, he agreed. This was Long Xuanyuan's right. You are Nana's grandfather? The Empyrean fairy suddenly asked. Long Xianyuan was even more nervous when facing the Empyrean fairy. He knew that this was the fierce person who killed the sword god. He hurriedly bowed slightly and said, Yes. Nana is my disciple. The Empyrean fairy simply said this sentence and didn't say anything else. Long Xuanyuan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He looked at the Empyrean fairy in disbelief. His granddaughter was actually a disciple of this person. This was really the Long family's fortune. Immediately, he bowed deeply to the Empyrean fairy and said, It is the fortune of 3 lifetimes for Nana to be able to enter your sect. This old man thanks you. The Empyrean fairy looked at him indifferently and said, I accepted her as my disciple because of her talent. It has nothing to do with you and the Long family. Yes. Long Xianyuan hurriedly nodded and didn't dare to refute. But this is also a great fortune of the Long family. Can I ask you to let me play host after you leave the 10,000 mountains? I said this has nothing to do with you. The Empyrean fairy refused. Long Xianyuan didn't dare to persuade again, but the wrinkles at the corner of his eyes were filled with joy. Suddenly his heart moved, and he pointed in a direction and said, There is an injured person going in that direction. Why didn't you say so earlier? Heaven Monk snorted angrily, and rushed out as if he was flying. Tang Zheng and the others no longer cared about Long Xianyuan, and shot out. Since they couldn't catch up with the 100 Faces Star Sovereign, they would chase after the Azure Dragon Hall's High Lord and Fair-Faced Flying Dragon. These 2 people would definitely escape from the 10,000 mountains. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. Long Xianyuan put away the shock on his face, hesitated for a moment, and also chased after them. This time, he didn't want to deal with Tang Zheng, but wanted to see what he could do to help. The change in his way of thinking allowed both sides to bury the hatchet, and also gave himself and the Long family a chance to live. The few of them were as fast as lightning, shuttling through the dense forest. Suddenly, the Empyrean fairy shouted, There is the smell of blood in this direction. The High Lord was injured, and the smell of blood was definitely the High Lord's. The few of them were shocked and chased forward. Sure enough, they saw a figure in front of them. It wasn't the High Lord or Fair-Faced Flying Dragon, but a member of the Flying Guillotine who had escaped earlier. The other party didn't seem to be surprised by the arrival of the pursuers. Instead, the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of complacency. You want to kill the High Lord? Dream on. It seems that you guys expected us to chase after you, so you deliberately used this method to lure us here. In fact, the High Lord and Fair-Faced Flying Dragon have already escaped to God knows where, right? Tang Zheng saw through the other party's thoughts with a glance. The other party's eyes fluctuated violently, but he didn't say anything. Tang Zheng understood. As expected, he guessed correctly. This High Lord was too smart. However, his left chest was pierced by the shooting sun arrow, and his heart should have been hit as well. Why wasn't he dead yet? Tang Zheng guessed that the other party must have a special life-saving method. Capture him alive. Tang Zheng decided to capture him alive, and used the soul search to search for more information about the Azure Dragon Palace. The other party's expression changed greatly. He didn't resist, but raised his hand and slapped his own head. With the other party's strength, his head would probably explode like a ripe watermelon. You want to die in front of me? Not so easy. Tang Zheng learned from Jian Shursan's mistake, so he couldn't let the other party succeed. He stretched out his arm and used the swallowing heaven technique. A black hole appeared in his palm and immediately sucked the other party into his palm and controlled him. Chapter 860. Tang Zheng controlled the man and was about to use the soul-searching technique when he found that the other party had a sneer on his face. He was startled, and a bad premonition hit his heart. Sure enough, the other party's head tilted and he died. Under his control, the corner of his mouth overflowed with a trace of black blood. Poisoned. Tang Zheng suddenly realized and pried open his mouth. Sure enough, he was poisoned. Although Tang Zheng controlled him, he still triggered the poison and died immediately, not giving Tang Zheng a chance. A great master martial artist was actually willing to give up his life like this. Tang Zheng was extremely shocked. A great master martial artist was an extremely important existence to a family, but this person actually sacrificed himself without hesitation. What kind of existence was the Azure Dragon Palace that they could train such a person? Tang Zheng was shocked. He loosened his hand and the other party fell to the ground. After such a delay, it was impossible for them to catch up to the High Lord, so they simply gave up on the chase. The others looked at this scene and were deeply shocked. Tian Chanzi said, "The Azure Dragon Palace will be our biggest threat. If we don't get rid of them, one day it will lead to a disaster." The Empyrean Fairy added, "The phaseless method is even more strange and unpredictable. I feel that the power of the phaseless method has not been fully exerted. Otherwise, I'm afraid its power would be even greater, and it would be even more disadvantageous for us. Therefore, we must figure out what kind of martial arts the phaseless method is." After saying that, she looked at Ling in surprise. She was the only one who was not affected by the phaseless method, so the breakthrough was naturally on her. Ling looked at the Empyrean Fairy blankly. Although she turned the situation around with her own strength, she was not clear about what was going on. Tang Zheng knew that the Empyrean Fairy had not figured out the reason for the phaseless method, so he explained, "The horror of the phaseless method is that it affects almost everyone. As long as a person has murderous intent and hostility, and their heart is not completely pure, it is difficult to be an exception." "What did you say? Who told you that?" The Empyrean Fairy was shocked. "Chiyu." The Empyrean Fairy fell silent. Tian Chanzi's eyes also revealed a look of disbelief as he said, "We've been through so many battles, and the murderous aura has long since seeped into our bones. Even if it is an ordinary person, it is impossible to have a completely pure mind. The power of this non-phase method is too terrifying." Tang Zheng nodded in agreement. From this, it can be seen that this Azure Dragon Palace is indeed not just an empty name, but the real deal. "I understand. Ling is a ginseng, and her mind is pure enough to not be affected by the non-phase method." "I didn't expect that she would be the one to save us this time." The Empyrean Fairy had mixed feelings. Ling looked at everyone blankly. She didn't realize that she had such a big role. Looking at her ignorant appearance, Tang Zheng smiled and said, "Ling, this time everyone was saved by you. Now you know how powerful you are, right?" Ling shook her head like a rattledrum and said nervously, "Master, Ling is not as powerful as you say. Without you, Ling would not have been able to do this. Don't be modest. In addition, did you notice that when the Great Lord used the non-phase method, although we were all affected, he was also helpless and couldn't use other attacks. He had to rely on the flying guillotine to attack us. In addition, anyone who entered his attack range would be attacked indiscriminately. Therefore, the fair-faced flying dragon failed to save him." The Empyrean Fairy pointed out. Therefore, the Great Lord and the flying guillotine complemented each other. This is the most fatal method of the Azure Dragon Hall. Tian Chanzi concluded. Tang Zheng nodded, admitting that what the two said was true. He added, "Therefore, to deal with the Great Lord, we have to rely on Ling." Suddenly, the three people focused their eyes on Ling. Ling felt an inexplicable pressure and said nervously, "Don't look at me, I'm really not that powerful." "Ling, don't belittle yourself. Be confident," Tang Zheng urged. "Oh. But the most important point is that Ling's mind cannot be changed by pollution. Otherwise, facing the non-phase method will be in vain. The Empyrean fairy said. Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi both nodded. This was the most important thing. To keep a person's heart, especially in this materialistic society, it was much more difficult than cultivating martial arts. Linger, did you hear that? Tang Zheng asked. Linger nodded hesitantly. This is Master's order. Linger will definitely do it. It's not enough to rely on her own efforts. We have to make the people around her reliable enough. We can't let her hands be stained with the slightest bit of blood and evil aura. The Empyrean fairy said. Tang Zheng had to admit that the Empyrean fairy was very thoughtful. Although it was very difficult, he still had to do it. Linger was like a national treasure that must be protected in all aspects, and not only to protect her from harm. I will order Yi Yuan to lead the elites of the witch clan back. Tang Zheng didn't think that Me and the others could do this. They could do business, but they couldn't do anything about these things. In the past, he was afraid that the authorities or the Azure Dragon Palace would deal with the witch clan, so he placed them and the people of the martial sect on the island. Now that he had the Empyrean fairy, at least the authorities wouldn't dare to act rashly. In addition, he had another layer of consideration. After all, the witch clan was the core of the Jili tribe. Chiyu had awakened again. If he didn't tighten his close relationship with the witch clan, if one day Chiyu left his body, would he take the witch clan back under his command? Tang Zheng didn't want the witch clan to be taken back under Chiyu's command. Then he would summon the witch clan back and let them stay by his side to deepen the relationship between them. Of course, there was no need to make this thought public. Although Chiyu and the inner demons were in his body, Tang Zheng's strength was no longer the same as before. His spirit was strong, so the two of them were unable to detect his thoughts. He was not afraid that Chiyu would know. In fact, even if he knew, Chiyu couldn't do anything about it. It's best that you have your own arrangements. Linger is the most important, we can't lose her. Empyrean fairy emphasized. Whiz! Long Xianyuan also caught up. Seeing the corpse on the ground, the corner of his mouth twitched a few times. Seeing that the few of them were looking over, he quickly said, Tang Ling or Miss Tang has encountered some problems with the official cooperation with Dianan. I have a way to solve it. He did not hear the conversation between the few of them just now. It was purely to deepen the relationship between them. Tang Zheng was also clear about this, but he did not make a decision immediately. Instead, he looked at Linger. Linger understood and said, Master, you make the decision. Linger will listen to you. Linger, this is your job. What do you think? Linger looked around and said, the scenery of Dianan is beautiful, and there are 10,000 mountains. Although it is dangerous, Linger also likes the environment here, so the cooperation with Dianan is quite good. It seemed that Linger really liked Dianan. Tang Zheng nodded and said, then it's up to you. You will be the tourism ambassador. Long Xianyuan was overjoyed and promised, everyone, please rest assured. This matter will be done as soon as possible. Originally, Linger came for the cooperation, but the matter with Long Tengfei caused it to be ruined. With Long Xuanyuan's power, this was a small matter. Of course, he could turn the situation around. Linger smiled sweetly and politely nodded to Long Xianyuan to thank him. The monsters in the 10,000 mountains are either dead or have fled. The threat has been mostly eliminated. As for the 100 Faces Star Lord, it will be very difficult to find him, so there is no need to stay here. Tang Zheng said. Empyrean fairy glanced at Long Xianyuan. Long Xianyuan was very smart and immediately retreated far away. He knew that they had something to talk about, and did not want him to know. Although he was curious, he did not dare to eavesdrop. I want to go to Mount Buzhou to take a look. Empyrean fairy said that before coming, Tang Zheng had already told her about Mount Buzhou and the 100 Faces Star Lord. She was naturally very curious. The 100 Faces Star Lord is definitely not in Mount Buzhou. Tang Zheng said, I'm not looking for him. I'm looking for Mount Buzhou. Empyrean fairy insisted. All right, let's go to Mount Buzhou. Tang Zheng was actually not too willing to expose Mount Buzhou in front of too many people. After all, Mount Buzhou was related to the Heaven Stairway, and furthermore, Yanqingyi's prophecy also involved Mount Buzhou. However, Empyrean Fairy was not an outsider, so he had no way to refuse this request. Patriarch Long, let's part ways here. You don't have to follow us anymore, understand? Tang Zheng called Long Xianyuan over and warned him. Long Xianyuan understood that the other party was going to do something secretive. If he continued to follow them, he would be asking for trouble. He promised and said that he would immediately go back and prepare for Linger's tourism ambassador. After bidding farewell to each other, Tang Zheng and the rest rushed towards Mount Buzhou and entered the prehistoric heavenly tomb once again. Occasionally, there would be monsters appearing, but they were extremely weak. When they saw these people, they would run in all directions. The demonic beasts were not idiots. Even their master, the 100 Faces Star Lord, had failed, so how could they dare to compete with Tang Zheng and the rest? Tian Chanzi looked at the messy prehistoric heavenly tomb, especially the tombstones that had fallen to the ground. Tian Chanzi sighed with emotion. I'm afraid that even in their dreams, these experts would never have thought that they would suffer such a great crime after death. This 100 Faces Star Lord is truly too despicable. I'm guessing that the 100 Faces Star Lord will probably leave the 10,000 huge mountains. There's nothing left for him here. In the future, he could be anyone, and the threat to us would be even greater. Tang Zheng sighed faintly. How could everyone not know this? But there was nothing they could do. Gradually, Mount Buzhou appeared in their line of sight. It was covered in white snow and the mountainside was shrouded in clouds, making it impossible to see through. Empyrean Fairy stared blankly at Mount Buzhou and said, When I was young, I heard my father mention Mount Buzhou, but at that time, Mount Buzhou was already broken, and no one knew where Mount Buzhou was. I never thought that it would actually be hidden here. Mount Buzhou is connected to the sky beyond heaven. If we rebuild the heaven stairway, we can go to the sky beyond heaven and bring the others back. Tian Chanzi had always been thinking about this matter. Chapter 861. Tian Chanzi had never forgotten about the stairway to heaven. He looked at Tang Zheng and said, You've been looking for dark stones of heaven and earth. How many have you collected so far? More than 60 pieces. Tang Zheng did not want to lie to Tian Chanzi, so he told the truth. Tian Chanzi looked excited and said, Where did you collect so many dark stones of heaven and earth? The South Sea. Tian Chanzi nodded slightly. I didn't expect that there would be so many dark stones of heaven and earth hidden in the sea. If we can find the remaining dark stones of heaven and earth, then the day of rebuilding the stairway to heaven will be just around the corner. Tang Zheng did not tell him the whole truth. If Tian Chanzi knew that there were dark stones of heaven and earth under the imperial palace, he would definitely rush back without stopping. However, he was still one step away from the soul formation stage. The Empyrean Fairy was not willing to help. Even if she knew, she could only sigh and feel powerless, which would only increase her worries. I've always heard about the outer sky, but I've never really been there. If there's a chance, I want to go there. The Empyrean Fairy suddenly said. When Tang Zheng heard this, he had the impulse to immediately let her release the 5-clawed golden dragon. Then he could take out the dark stones of heaven and earth, rebuild the stairway to heaven and go to the outer sky. But in the end he held back and said, The outer sky is definitely not a very good place. The 100 Faces Star Lord has sent many people to explore the outer sky in ancient times, but none of them returned. You can imagine how dangerous the outer sky is. Besides, if the outer sky is really so good, the demon race would not have tried to return to our world. The Empyrean Fairy looked at Tang Zheng in a daze. After thinking for a while she nodded. That makes sense. Tang Zheng, you're quite smart. The 100 Faces Star Lord is not wrong. In the past, many people were sent to the stairway to heaven, but there was no news of them. Qiyu suddenly said. Tang Zheng then remembered that Qiyu was one of the people involved in that year. He hurriedly asked, Is there any special information about the realm beyond heaven? You already know that there are big and small worlds in this world. I reckon that beyond heaven is another world, and the situation within it is completely unpredictable. With your current strength, trying to force your way into the outer sky is not a wise decision. Qiyu warned. Tang Zheng inwardly agreed. He was even more determined not to take out the heaven and earth obsidian under the imperial city for the time being. The group climbed up the snow-capped mountain road. The cold wind whistled. The outside world was in the middle of a scorching summer, but here, it was a world of ice and snow, like the 12th lunar month. Mount Buzhou was still enveloped by the enchantment and isolated from the outside world. Tang Zheng was familiar with the process and easily broke through the enchantment. Behind the enchantment was another world. The spring breeze was as warm as spring, and the flowers, birds, grass, and insects were full of vitality. Back then, the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign lived in this barrier, but this barrier could not stop him. He could come and go as he pleased. The Empyrean Fairy looked at this world and clicked her tongue in admiration. Mount Buzhou is really magical. There are so many sights. Master, doesn't this look like the paradise described in the books? The scenery is so beautiful, Linger said with her eyes wide open. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. This is not a paradise. 100 Transformations Star Sovereign used to live here. It was very dangerous. Linger pursed her lips and said, "It's such a pity that such a bad person lived here. But he definitely doesn't live here now." Tang Zheng said that 100 Transformations Star Sovereign was imprisoned here for tens of thousands of years. Once he escaped, he would definitely not be willing to step foot here again. In the future, we will live in the 100,000 mountains. We can also come here occasionally to play. Linga looked forward to it. After a while, they arrived at the small wooden house where 100 Transformations Star Sovereign used to live. However, it had become a pile of ruins and was no longer peaceful. Back then, the furthest Tang Zheng's group had come was here. Later on, they were chased by 100 Transformations Star Sovereign and had no time to explore the other places of Mount Buzhou. Tang Zheng gave a simple introduction. The Empyrean Fairy nodded secretly and said, "Then let's continue forward. We haven't reached the peak yet." Tang Zheng was moved. He also wanted to explore the peak and gladly accepted. The group continued forward. The scenery along the way became more and more beautiful. It was truly a scene of paradise. Suddenly, a thick fog shrouded the front, blocking everyone's path. "This fog is strange." The Empyrean Fairy frowned. "Amazing, you can see it with a single glance," Tang Zheng praised. He walked straight to the fog and waved his hand. The fog also surged as if it was alive. "This is the formation?" Tian Chanzi asked hesitantly. After the stairway to heaven was destroyed, the peak was sealed by a formation. Normal people can't reach it. "This is what Chiyu told me," Tang Zheng explained. The method to break the formation was naturally from Chiyu. As soon as he finished speaking, the fog was pushed aside and retreated to the sides. A strong wind blew, causing them to sway and almost lose their balance. "Everyone be careful. This peak is not simple. It's very dangerous," Tang Zheng warned. He held Linger's hand and said, "Linger, follow me." Linger smiled sweetly. She held Tang Zheng's hand tightly and followed him obediently. The strong wind was biting cold. The aura of heaven and earth had become very chaotic. It was completely different from the previous fragrance of flowers and birds. It was as if they had entered another world. This Mount Buzhou was really strange. The foot of the mountain, the middle of the mountain, and the peak were three completely different scenes. It was like three different worlds. If a normal person came to the peak, they would have been blown away by the strong wind and fallen off the cliff to their death. They didn't walk very far before they found that the path beneath their feet had become dangerous. There were cliffs on both sides. There was only a straight path in the middle. The path went straight up and stopped abruptly after a few dozen meters. "We've reached the peak," Tang Zheng said. Although Chiyu had described this scene to him before, he was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. Tang Zheng had been to Sky Mountain before, but Mount Buzhou seemed to be closer to the sky. They were only one step away from reaching the sky. It was really within reach. The few of them stared at the end of the path. The Empyrean Fairy said, "Is that where the stairway to heaven broke?" "Yes. If we follow that path to rebuild the stairway to heaven, we can reach the sky beyond heaven." Tang Zheng pointed to the end of the path and said. Linger looked at the sky blankly and asked, Linger has also been on a plane. It's higher than here. Why didn't I see the sky beyond heaven? The Empyrean fairy looked deeply at her and said, the sky beyond heaven isn't really in the sky. It's another world. The stairway to heaven is the key to opening that other world. I'm guessing that there's a formation in the stairway to heaven or something like that that can trigger the passage to the sky beyond heaven. It doesn't mean that one can only go to the sky beyond heaven by ascending to the sky beyond heaven. Linger didn't fully understand and looked blankly at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, understood. He was deeply impressed and said, you are right. The heaven stairway is the key and door to the sky beyond heaven. As for why it has such an effect, even Qiyu is not clear about it. How did the stairway to heaven come about? Tang Zheng had already asked Qiyu this question and answered. The stairway to heaven was accidentally discovered by someone. As for its origin, no one knows. Well, it seemed that the stairway to heaven was as mysterious as the sky beyond heaven. If they wanted to solve all of this, they would have to rebuild the stairway to heaven. The Empyrean fairy and Tian Chanzi looked at the mountain peak in front of them with burning eyes. It was as if they were imagining the scene after the stairway to heaven was rebuilt. Tian Chanzi waved his fist and said, no matter how dangerous the sky beyond heaven is, as long as I'm alive, I will definitely explore it. Tang Zheng looked deeply at him. Tang Zheng was also curious about the sky beyond heaven, but he wasn't that interested at the moment. The Empyrean fairy seemed to be a little unwilling, and leaped into the air. Like a dancing butterfly, she flew straight up into the sky. The astral wind in front of her became more and more biting cold. It blew her hair up and her body swayed along with it. Suddenly, her body became sluggish and stopped helplessly. Then, as if she had received a huge recoil, she had no choice but to retreat. She staggered to the ground and almost fell off the mountain peak. Whoosh! She took a deep breath and said, there's something strange up ahead. What's strange? The others asked curiously. The aura between heaven and earth is completely chaotic. The astral wind is very overbearing, and there's a mysterious force that's preventing me from moving forward and pushing me back. The Empyrean fairy said with a dignified expression. The others' expressions changed and said, is it really that strange? Looking at the Empyrean fairy's expression, it was obvious that all of this was true. This place was connected to the sky beyond heaven, and was indeed not an ordinary place. This is the place where two worlds are connected. Everything can't be judged by common sense. This is our world, but it also has some of the attributes of the sky beyond heaven. Moreover, this astral wind is very strange. Look at the direction of the wind, and it seems to be blowing from the sky. I suspect that it's directly blown from the sky beyond heaven, the Empyrean fairy said with deep feelings. Tian Chanzi looked deeply at the sky and said resolutely, I'll go up and take a look too. Whoosh! He leaped into the air, but before he could reach the place where the Empyrean fairy was, he was blown away by the astral wind and directly fell back in shock. I agree with your judgment. This astral wind is indeed strange. It's very likely that it's blown from the sky beyond heaven. Tian Chanzi agreed. Tang Zheng frowned and pondered. Suddenly, he had an idea and said, since this is the place where two worlds are connected, if there's no stairway to heaven, can we rush through here and reach the sky beyond heaven? The Empyrean fairy and Tian Chanzi looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. They smiled bitterly and said, we can't. Why don't you give it a try? Your cultivations are so much higher than mine. If you can't do it, it's even more impossible for me. Tang Zheng shook his head helplessly. This was whimsical. How could it be so easy? If it was really that easy, after the stairway to heaven was destroyed, there would be no one who could reach the sky beyond heaven from here. Master, you should give it a try. If they can't do it, it doesn't mean that you can't. Linger encouraged. In her eyes, Tang Zheng seemed to be omnipotent. Squeak squeak. Little White also nodded in agreement at the side. Tang Zheng was moved by their words and changed his mind. Chapter 862. Tang Zheng circulated his power, and the genuine qi flowed smoothly through the meridians in his body. With a slight tap of his toes, he rushed into the sky like a cheetah. Whoosh! An even more piercingly cold wind blew past his ears, causing his cheeks to hurt. Moreover, from the unseen world, a mysterious force came head-on, trying to stop him. Roar! He let out a deep roar and hurriedly circulated his true qi in an attempt to resist this power. However, this power was too strong and there was nowhere to vent it. His body was about to fall back. He was quick-witted, and hurriedly used the sky-swallowing technique. 2 black holes appeared in his palms, and the power was actually absorbed by the black holes. With the resistance greatly reduced, he leaped up again and actually flew against the current, flying even further than the Empyrean Fairy. The Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi looked at each other in shock. How did he do it? At the same time, they couldn't help but look forward to seeing if Tang Zheng could find anything. Or perhaps, he had really found the world beyond heaven? Tang Zheng also became excited. He also thought of this possibility. If they could really enter the Outland, then wouldn't there be no need for the stairway to heaven? The strong wind was like a knife, and it actually cut open a wound on his cheek. It was extremely painful, but he quickly gritted his teeth and endured it. He continued to circulate his power, hoping to reach even further. A ripple suddenly appeared in the blue sky, and a change occurred. A barbaric scene entered his eyes. This before he had time to think. A loud roar pierced through his eardrums. He saw an incomparably large bird flying over from the horizon. Rumble! Unknown ferocious beasts were running on the ground. The towering trees were broken by the ferocious beasts. In the huge forest, the ferocious beasts drew a long black line. There were actually over 100 of them. These ferocious beasts were larger than most of the beasts that Tang Zheng had seen before. Furthermore, they were ferocious and terrifying. However, they seemed to be very afraid, and were running away from something. That big bird. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed as he looked at the massive bird in the sky. It was even bigger than any plane in the world. And when it spread its wings, it was at least 1,000 meters long. Whoosh! The big bird flapped its wings, and a tornado appeared between heaven and earth. The big bird swooped down like a fighter jet, and the sound of breaking through the air was like thunder. In the blink of an eye, over 100 ferocious beasts on the ground were defeated by him in a single move. Countless were killed or injured, and then they were swallowed into his big mouth and disappeared. A 7-colored light flashed on the bird's body. When the light dispersed, the bird disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. His mouth was about to be stuffed with a duck egg. The shock that this scene gave him was unimaginable. It was more shocking than any battle he had ever encountered. Perhaps only the Battle of Zhuolu that he had seen in Qi Yu's illusion could be compared to this. His vision gradually expanded. In the distance he saw a majestic city. This city was so huge that he couldn't see the end of it with a single glance. There was a terrifying might within the city. Moreover, at the center of the city, a pillar of light rushed into the horizon, connecting heaven and earth. This pillar of light seemed to contain an extremely mysterious power, which made people feel reverence. Tang Zheng wanted to take a closer look. Suddenly, the scene in front of him fluctuated and disappeared. It became a blue sky again. His figure paused, and he was blown back by the strong wind. Tian Chanzi hurriedly caught him and said with concern, "Be careful. What did you find? Why are you so distracted?" The Empyrean Fairy also looked at him with burning eyes, waiting for his answer. Tang Zheng muttered to himself for a while, digesting the shocking scene, and said, "I saw something." What? Previously, Tian Chanzi and the Empyrean Fairy didn't find anything. Hearing this, they were shocked, happy and curious. Tang Zheng described what he saw in detail. Suddenly he asked, "Did you hear those sounds just now?" The two shook their heads at the same time. "No, we only heard the sound of the wind. Since you're the only one who saw those images, it seems that only you can hear those sounds." "Do you think those images are from the sky beyond heaven?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. This was the thought that came to him when he saw the scene just now. "It should be," the two said in unison. "Since this is the passage to the sky beyond heaven, it's not impossible to occasionally see images from there. It's just that we can only do this by breaking through the obstruction of that mysterious power. You actually have a way to deal with that mysterious resistance. The Empyrean fairy looked at him in amazement. Tang Zheng chuckled. Fortunately, it was the sky-swallowing technique that worked. The Empyrean fairy and Tian Chanzi both knew about the sky-swallowing technique. Tian Chanzi asked suspiciously, "As far as I know, the sky-swallowing technique is of little value to the demon race. I feel that your sky-swallowing technique is much more powerful and different from the demon races." Tang Zheng couldn't help but sigh at Tian Chanzi's shrewdness. He admitted, "There is a little difference." This was because after he obtained the second half of the sky-swallowing technique from the Langya Pavilion, the sky-swallowing technique had unknowingly changed. Of course, its power was much more powerful than the demon race's sky-swallowing technique. Tian Chanzi didn't care much about the demon race's techniques. He didn't continue to ask about the sky-swallowing technique and change the topic. "You're the only one among us who can get close. Can we try again and see if we can see more images?" The Empyrean fairy also nodded in agreement. Tang Zheng was also quite tempted. He rested for a moment, accumulated his vital energy, and flew up again. This time he directly used the sky-swallowing technique. Sure enough, the mysterious force appeared again, but it was immediately absorbed by the sky-swallowing technique. Tang Zheng once again arrived at the previous place. He opened his eyes wide, not letting go of any details, hoping to see more images. However, things didn't go as he wished. The wound on his face burst open again, and the clothes on his body were torn apart, revealing his strong physique. Things didn't go as I wished. I can't see anything. Tang Zheng looked around and couldn't help but feel disappointed when he saw nothing. The strong wind blew, and he couldn't continue to persevere. He flew back with a depressed face and shook his head at their eager eyes. "No, I can't see anything." The two couldn't help but feel disappointed. Tian Chanzi patted Tang Zheng's shoulder and comforted him. "This is something that can only be encountered by chance. Since you've seen a little, it's enough for us to understand more about the sky beyond heaven. In fact, the images you've seen have already conveyed a lot of information." Tang Zheng's spirit was shaken and he nodded. "That's reasonable. At least we know that the sky beyond heaven is indeed a dangerous place, as we previously speculated. It's not a good place. Those ferocious beasts and that giant bird are no pushovers. On top of that, that city is so vast that it's obvious that the outer sky is a much more powerful world. The natives of that world are far more powerful than us. The few of them didn't look too good. There were so many small and big worlds. And now that they found out that the strength of this world was so terrifying, of course, they couldn't be happy. They also finally understood why the demon race tried so hard to return. In that world, the demon race's life was probably not easy. Chiyu also knew about the sky beyond heaven for the first time. He sighed. No wonder so many people never returned. They were probably killed by the natives of the sky beyond heaven. Tang Zheng felt regretful and said seriously, "Since the sky beyond heaven is so dangerous, and there are even stronger existences, the stairway to heaven can't be easily rebuilt. Otherwise, we won't only be facing the cultivators of our world, but also the natives of the sky beyond heaven. At that time, we'll be in trouble, and we might even cause a disaster to this world." Although Tian Chanzi was unwilling, he had to admit that Tang Zheng's words were reasonable. He didn't say a word, and tacitly agreed with Tang Zheng's decision. The Empyrean fairy looked at the sky deeply and said regretfully, "I originally wanted to go to the sky beyond heaven to investigate, but now it seems that this plan is going to be ruined." Tang Zheng didn't think so, because he suddenly remembered Yan Qingyi's prophecy. In the prophecy, the stairway to heaven had been rebuilt. However, he also remembered Qiyu's words. The stairway to heaven existed a long time ago. At that time, only the people of this world entered the sky beyond heaven through the stairway to heaven. Why didn't the people of the sky beyond heaven come through the stairway to heaven? After listening to Tang Zheng's question, Qiyu was speechless for a moment. He couldn't find a conclusive answer, and could only say, "Maybe there are some reasons that we don't know." Suddenly, Tang Zheng felt that more questions came to his mind, and he couldn't figure it out in a short time. He could only temporarily put it to the back of his mind. Tang Zheng, you're exposed. Suddenly, Tian Chanzi pointed at Tang Zheng's clothes, which were almost like strips of cloth, and said mischievously. Tang Zheng was embarrassed. He looked at the Empyrean fairy and Linger, and fiercely glared at Tian Chanzi. He quickly ran to the side to change his clothes. The few of them didn't continue to stay here. They looked at the peak of the mountain with complicated expressions, and went down the mountain. After experiencing 3 different environments, they came to the foot of the mountain. When they looked back again, the peak of the mountain was covered in clouds and fog. It was impossible to see clearly. I've seen Mount Buzhou. One of my wishes has been fulfilled. Empyrean Fairy said. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly and said, there's nothing to do in the 100,000 mountains. Let's go back to the capital. The few of them quickly shuttled through the dense forest. Tang Zheng's mind couldn't help but have images of the sky beyond heaven. His heart was unsettled. If the stairway to heaven is really reforged, then we must do our best to prevent the natives of the sky beyond heaven from coming to this world. Otherwise, this world will really suffer a disaster. Tang Zheng thought silently. Although he never wanted to be a savior, when he saw that this world was in danger, he almost subconsciously wanted to avoid that kind of situation. Perhaps this was inseparable from the education he received from his grandfather since he was young. His grandfather had always taught him to be a good person. He still maintained pure kindness in his bones. The few of them walked out of the 100,000 mountains, and the 100,000 mountains returned to silence. However, they didn't walk too far before they saw a few luxury cars parked by the side of the road. Long Xianyuan was actually sitting in the car. When he saw the few of them, he quickly got off the car and walked over to greet them. Everyone, you're finally out. Quick, quick, get in the car. Don't be in a hurry to leave. You must let me do my part as a host. Long Xianyuan warmly invited. Although he was very curious about what Tang Zheng and the others were doing, he didn't dare to ask. Chapter 863. After pausing for a few days in Dianan, Long Xianyuan received him grandly. Linger's cooperation with the authorities had already been finalized, and she still had to stay in Dianan to film a promotional video for Dianan. Yi Yuan brought the elites of the witch clan and rushed to Dianan, protecting Linger's safety closely. As for the other staff members, they were repeatedly warned by Tang Zheng. Everyone realized the importance of Linger to their boss, and protected her like a national treasure. However, there was another person who came with Yi Yuan, Lan Yu, Tang Zheng's mother. She missed her son and couldn't help but come with Yi Yuan. Although this was out of Tang Zheng's expectations, he did not say anything. According to Yi Yuan's report, everyone was doing well on the island, especially the old man, Tang Dehai. Although he was not used to it at first, he gradually became obsessed with cultivation, and actually regained his vitality at the age of 70. His face was flushed red and his spirit was hale and hearty. Regarding this, Tang Zheng was very gratified. After Lan Yu saw her son, she almost never left his side. Tang Zheng was helpless and did not stop her. The knot in his heart was slowly unraveling, and he could treat his parents normally. The time spent together was always short. Even though Ling was reluctant to part, she could only watch as Tang Zheng and the others left. She still had a lot of work to do. After the few of them boarded the plane and returned to the capital, Tian Chanzi slipped away. Lan Yu was naturally brought to the villa. The villa had already been renovated, and the traces of the battle had long since disappeared. Actually, they could have moved out of this place, but everyone chose to stay. That battle had left a deep impression on them. Living here, they could constantly remind them of a sense of danger. A few great beauties came out to welcome them. Lan Yu's eyes were almost dazzled by them. When she was young, she was also a beauty, and now, she was even more charming. However, when she saw the few beauties with different styles in front of her, she was still dazzled. She couldn't help but look at her son. Although she liked Yiwu the most, the corners of her mouth still curled up into a smile. She thought to herself that her son was great, to actually have the favor of so many girls. When Wu saw Lan Yu, he immediately stepped forward and bowed, calling out affectionately, "Mistress, why are you here?" Wu Pingchang's cold outer clothes were taken off, and she was just like an ordinary girl. Lan Yu held Wu's hand and said, "I missed you in Shaozheng, so I came to see you." As he spoke, he swept his gaze across the others. Other than Fang Shishir, the others did not know the relationship between Lan Yu and Tang Zheng, so they could not help but be curious, but they still politely nodded. Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit awkward, Tang Zheng hurriedly led everyone into the room. He didn't know how to introduce Lan Yu's identity, so he found an excuse to return to the study and let them interact with each other. The relationship between women could be established very quickly. In just a few words, everyone understood that this was Tang Zheng's mother. Immediately, everyone's mouths became even sweeter, especially Lu Qingmei and Nan Nan. One big and one small. It was as if they had crawled out of a jar of honey, making Lan Yu's heart burst with joy. And Mu Hongyan were much more reserved. After all, An's identity was special, and Mu Hongyan was more mature and steady. They did not have that kind of ambiguous relationship with Tang Zheng. Mu Hongyan knocked on the door of the study and walked in. Seeing Tang Zheng sitting on the chair, she said, "Tang Zheng, your relationship with Aunt." She wanted to say something but hesitated. As smart as she was, of course, she could see that the relationship between the mother and son was not very harmonious. Moreover, Tang Zheng had never mentioned his parents before, which made her suspicious. Tang Zheng waved his hand and changed the topic. "Sister Mu, this time when I went to Dianan, I saw Nana's grandfather." Mu Hongyan's heart tightened, and she asked nervously, "Then you?" Obviously, she wanted to ask if there was a conflict between the two sides. Tang Zheng understood her thoughts, shook his head and said, "I have buried the hatchet with him. What happened in the past is written off." Tang Zheng did this more because he didn't want the mother and daughter to be caught in the middle. Mu Hongyan and Nana's importance to him was self-evident. They were not relatives, but they were more than relatives. Mu Hongyan heaved a huge sigh of relief. Her tense body also relaxed, as if relieved of a heavy burden. "That's good. Actually, Eunuch is not an unreasonable person. The reason why I left the Long family was more because of other people, and not Eunuch. He has always taken care of me and loved Nana very much." Tang Zheng nodded. "It is because I know this that I chose to reconcile." Mu Hongyan reluctantly smiled. If other people heard this, they would think that he was bragging, but Mu Hongyan took care of Tang Zheng's business for him. She knew the power he had now. This was only the power in the business world. If it was in terms of force and invisible influence, it was the most terrifying. "Tang Zheng, during the time you were gone, the Yen family and I have figured out the businesses we took over from the Song family and the Chu family, and have generally integrated them. Your judgment was right. The officials will not turn a blind eye. They did not leave us much time. Fortunately, we made the first move and gained enough benefits. Otherwise, we would not have such a big harvest." Mu Hongyan reported. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. Business was not his strong point, and he would not interfere. He gave full authority to Mu Hongyan to manage. "Sister Mu, you can deal with these things carefully. You don't have to tell me everything in detail." Mu Hongyan laughed involuntarily. "Only you will be so open-minded. You have handed over such a big business to me, and you are not afraid that I will replace you." Tang Zheng laughed. "If Sister Mu likes it, you can take it away. These are all your credit. If there was no you, there would not be all of this." Mu Hongyan smiled sweetly. Of course she would not really do this. In the next few days, Tang Zheng did not stop. The Yen family and Qin Batian personally came to visit. Tang Zheng knew that the Ye family had completely given up, and did not go against them with great fanfare. Yi Xuanji had been in seclusion, and did not come out. All the family matters were handed over to Yi Ku to take care of. It was very stable, and there were no mistakes. Song Yu seemed to have evaporated from the world and never appeared again. Tang Zheng did not put Song Yu in his eyes, but his heart moved. He remembered Ji Wuxiang and asked, "What has Ji Wuxiang done recently?" Yen Luyan knew Tang Zheng's impression of Ji Wuxiang and hurriedly said, "His whereabouts have always been mysterious. We have tried to track him before, But we found nothing. This time is the same. I am afraid that he is the most erratic person in the capital. Tang Zheng was silent. Yan Luyin suspiciously asked, "Are you looking for him?" Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "No, I am just curious." Ever since they met at the chess club, he always felt that Ji Wuxiang was hiding very deeply, far more unfathomable than what was on the surface. Therefore, it was only natural that he would pay attention to him. Now the situation in the capital has undergone earth-shaking changes. Tang Zheng's power is almost equal to the Yin family, and Qin Batian has caught up. He can even faintly compete with the Ye family. But these three forces are twisted into a rope and listen to Tang Zheng's orders. Therefore, the Ye family is trying to survive in the cracks. What is the official reaction? Tang Zheng asked again. The National Security Bureau and the Dragon Group have been abolished. I have not heard of any new similar organizations being established. On the surface, it is calm. Tang Zheng secretly nodded and asked, "What about the things they left behind?" "That is not clear. I guess the military will take over. After all, these years the National Security Bureau and the Dragon Group have been shining brightly, and the military is much weaker. They have long been dissatisfied with the big shots in the military. They will definitely take this opportunity to rise up." Tang Zheng pondered. If the military took over, then the military's strength will definitely increase greatly. After all, the National Security Bureau and the Dragon Group left behind many things, especially the research of the Dragon Group. Whether it is super soldiers or mechas, they are all treasures. Tang Zheng has always had a good impression of the military. Since they took over, then there is no need to pay attention to them for the time being. Without the interference of the Dragon Group, his relationship with the government will be greatly improved. At the same time, on top of a towering mountain, Song Yu and Qi Sha were accompanied by another person. Song Yu brought the token and sword manual of the sword god back to the sword pavilion. He passed on the sword god's will, saying that the sword god had passed on the position of the sword pavilion master to him, and that everyone in the sword pavilion must listen to his orders. In the sword pavilion, other than the three disciples of the sword god, there was only the sword slave. The sword slave did not have the right to speak, and the other disciple of the sword god, Qi Sha, had limited intelligence. How could he be compared with the cunning Song Yu? Therefore, in a few words, the entire sword pavilion was taken in by Song Yu and treated him as the master. Song Yu immediately began to practice the 9th Heaven Galaxy Fall Sword technique in the sword manual. In addition, he was also qualified to comprehend the other sword techniques of the sword pavilion. The sword pavilion collected many sword techniques from famous sections. These sword techniques were the spoils of war won by the sword god from time to time. In the beginning, every time the sword god challenged someone, he would take the opponent's most powerful sword technique after winning. Over time, the sword pavilion collected many powerful sword techniques in the world. The sword god then used these sword techniques to get rid of the dross and extract the essence. In the end, he comprehended his own set of unique sword techniques. Among them, Qi Sha's Rising Sun Sword Technique, Jian Shisan's 13 Swords, and the 9th Heaven Galaxy Fall Sword Technique were the most powerful sword techniques that the sword god had comprehended. Song Yu was indeed innately intelligent and extremely talented. After comprehending these powerful sword techniques, he had mastered them through a comprehensive study. His power had increased greatly, and his attainments in sword techniques had increased day by day, soaring to the heavens. Although he still did not have the confidence to fight against Tang Zheng, he was confident that one day he would be able to fight against Tang Zheng and kill him to avenge himself and the Song family. But a sudden guest broke the peace of the sword pavilion. Song Yu actually recognized this person, and had even interacted with her several times. This person was the holy maiden of the Li Palace, Li Xiaotian, who had always been at Tang Zheng's side. Li Xiaotian had already disappeared from the crowd for too many days, but Song Yu would never forget her. Back then, the Song family had always wanted to establish a relationship with the Li Palace. Song Yu was very surprised by Li Xiaotian's visit, but the other news that she brought shocked him even more. This news only had 4 words. "The Venerable Lord summons you." Song Yu and Qi Sha did not know that the Azure Dragon Hall was behind the Sword Pavilion, but they had occasionally heard the two words, Venerable Lord, and knew what the Venerable Lord meant to the Sword Pavilion. Moreover, before the Sword God died, he had repeatedly warned Song Yu about the Venerable Lord's power, and told him to be respectful to the Venerable Lord. Chapter 864. They looked up to the tall mountain. Song Yu and Seven Kills could not help but have a myriad of thoughts. They had only heard of the Sword God mentioning the Great Lord, but had never seen him in person. Now that they were finally going to see the Great Lord's glory, the two of them could not help but feel a little nervous. What kind of person was able to make the Sword God so respectful? It was hard for them to imagine. The sound of splashing water came from the front. In the stream, clear spring water flowed down from the top of the mountain, converging into a small pool. An old man wearing a bamboo hat and a straw raincoat was fishing by the pool. In the clear spring water, they could clearly see that the fishing hook of the old man was straight. However, the fish circled around the hook, as if it wanted to swallow this straight iron hook that had no bait at all. Song Yu and Seven Kills saw the scene in the pool and could not help but be shocked. How could a straight hook without bait catch fish? Just as they had this thought, they saw a fish bite the straight hook and fiercely pull the buoy down. The old man revealed a satisfied smile. With a flick of his wrist, the fish drew a beautiful arc in the air and fell into a fish basket. The fish was biting the hook the whole time. As long as it let go, it would immediately fall into the water and regain its freedom in the pool. However, the fish did not let go no matter what, as if the hook was more important than its life. Song Yu and Seven Kills saw this strange scene, and were shocked speechless. There was actually such a method of fishing in the world. Li Xiaotian was not surprised. He bowed to the old man and said, "Senior." The old man glanced at the three of them from the corner of his eye, and then stared at the pool. With a flick of his wrist, the hook fell into the water. Although the old man did not have much of a reaction, Song Yu and Seven Kills did not dare to be arrogant. They quickly bowed and called him senior. "Let's go." Li Xiaotian clearly knew the old man's temper. He did not want to disturb him, and quickly walked to the top of the mountain. The mountain forest was green. On the top of the mountain, the wind blew loudly. A black house quietly stood there. There was nothing fancy about this black room. And there was even a kind of majesty that made one's heart beat like a drum that unknowingly overflowed, causing the two of them to be extremely fearful. "Go in." Li Xiaotian pointed at the door of the black room. The two of them looked at each other blankly, then gritted their teeth and walked over. Creak. The door opened, and the room was pitch black, without a trace of light. Bang. The flames soared into the air, and several oil lamps lit up around the house. The light was dim, but it eventually illuminated the house. The furnishings in the room were extremely simple. The walls were bare, and there was no extra furniture. There was only a chair placed at the very front of the room. The two of them looked at each other nervously. Although Song Yu was unyielding and arrogant, in this kind of environment, she couldn't help but be frightened. She didn't know what would happen. Clang. The door slammed shut, startling the two of them. Their heartstrings trembled, and they almost cried out in alarm. There was no one in the room. The two of them looked around but couldn't find any useful clues. The only thing they could find was the empty chair. The two of them walked forward aimlessly. Suddenly, as if their eyes were playing tricks on them, a person sat on the empty chair without them noticing. It was a man wearing a mask. The two of them trembled. Even with their cultivation, they didn't notice when this person sat on the chair. It was clear that the chair was empty just a second ago. From this, it could be seen that the masked man's cultivation was terrifying. This person must be the Lord. Song Yu was quick-witted and quickly bowed. "Greetings, Lord." Qi Sha was half a beat slower, and also bowed, but his actions and reactions were a bit slower than Song Yu's. The Lord's eyes stared straight at the two of them through the mask, like an eagle's eyes, and they felt like little rabbits without any resistance. "When the God of Swords died, you were by his side, right, Song Yu?" The Lord's voice was full of majesty as he asked. "Yes." Song Yu didn't dare to look at the Lord. She lowered her head, afraid that her thoughts would be seen through. What did the God of Swords say? Master asked me to tell the Lord that the woman in white he was fighting was very powerful, and that the Lord must pay attention to her. In addition, Master also taught me the Sword Pavilion and the Ninth Heaven Milky Way Fall Swordsmanship, and asked me to lead the Sword Pavilion to become stronger. Song Yu exaggerated, and said with great emotion. As soon as he finished speaking, he knelt on the floor with a thud and prostrated himself on the ground. He pressed his head tightly against the floor and emotionally said, "My lord, please avenge Master. Master died so miserably." As he spoke, he choked and sobbed. His emotions had accumulated to the peak, and at this moment they exploded. Although he seemed to be carefree, he was actually very afraid. He was afraid that his actions would be exposed, and he was afraid that he would be killed. Now that he saw the Lord, this fear was even stronger. The Lord's eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts, and it made him feel terrified. Therefore, he choked and sobbed not because of the God of Swords, but because of fear. Only his voice could be heard in the room. 7 Kills stood at the side like a puppet, not knowing what to do. The Lord narrowed his eyes and looked at Song Yu, who was lying on the floor, and said, "Get up." The God of Swords did not die in vain. At least he exposed Tang Zheng's strength, and also caused the Empyrean fairy to lose her virginity. Of course he must be avenged, but not now. Thump. Hearing this, 7 Kills also knelt on the floor and kowtowed to the Lord. Thump thump thump, he kowtowed again and again, as if he was going to break through the floor. He did not cry, but said coldly and with a murderous aura, "Lord, please avenge Master. From now on, my life belongs to you." Song Yu glanced at 7 Kills, and was infuriated. Damn. Why didn't I realize that 7 Kills was also a good actor? He was acting like me to win the Lord's favor. I can't let him have his way. Song Yu was measuring the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. 7 Kills sincerely wanted to avenge the God of Swords, so he kowtowed from the bottom of his heart, and was not playing any tricks. The Lord looked at the two people kneeling in a row and shouted, "Get up!" The two people's hearts trembled. This voice seemed to have a magical power, making them unable to think of resisting. They stood up subconsciously, crying and wailing, "Where are your manners?" The sobbing stopped abruptly, and the two people kept quiet out of fear. Since the God of Swords passed the Pavilion of Swords to you, then your responsibility is to bring the Pavilion of Swords to greater heights, not to act like a girl and cry. As for avenging the God of Swords, it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Moreover, with me here, the God of Swords will definitely be avenged. The Lord scolded. The two people were like primary school students being scolded. They lowered their heads, and did not even dare to breathe loudly. Song Yu thought that Qi Sha had stolen his limelight, so he hurriedly said, "Yes, Honorable Lord. I will definitely bring glory to Sword Pavilion. I will not disappoint Honorable Master. I will let him rest in peace in heaven." The Lord nodded with relief. "You come from a big family, so you know how to be reasonable. Since the God of Swords passed the Pavilion of Swords to you, it means that he trusts you. You must live up to his expectations." "Yes, Lord." Song Yu's heart warmed. This was equivalent to the Lord acknowledging his position. However, the Lord's next sentence made him feel cold. 7 Kills, you have to assist Song Yu in managing the Pavilion of Swords. Do you understand? "As you command, High Lord," 7 Kills answered firmly. Song Yu's eyelids twitched, and he was furious. Wasn't this letting 7 Kills keep him in check? It turned out that the Lord did not completely trust him. However, he could only curse in his heart. He did not dare to show the slightest change in his expression. "Also, you have just taken charge of the Pavilion of Swords, and there are many things that you have to deal with. I am afraid that you are not familiar with them and will encounter trouble, so I sent someone to help you. The three of you will work together to strengthen the Pavilion of Swords. Do you understand?" The martial arts sect had fallen apart and no longer existed. Therefore, the Lord gradually placed high hopes on the Pavilion of Swords. He hoped that the Pavilion of Swords could inherit the martial arts sect's position and function. This was his plan. He did not tell the two of them yet. However, when Song Yu heard this, his heart sank. The Lord had not only sent 7 kills to keep him in check, but also sent another person. It would not be so easy for him to completely control the Pavilion of Swords. He gritted his teeth in hatred, but he did not dare to say anything. "Come in," the Lord shouted outside. Although the door was tightly shut, the voice could be heard clearly. The door opened again and a person strode in. Song Yu and Qi Sha glanced back from the corner of their eyes, and found that it was Li Xiaotian who came in. What? Did he send her to the Pavilion of Swords? Song Yu was shocked. He had heard of Li Xiaotian's name many times. This person was both intelligent and brave. Moreover, he was sinister and cunning. With such a person in the Pavilion of Swords, his days would be even more uncomfortable. However, he still did not dare to show his dissatisfaction. He pretended to be calm and composed, as if it had nothing to do with him. "You know her. She will return to the Pavilion of Swords with you in a while, and help you manage the Pavilion of Swords. Do you understand?" the Lord said. Song Yu hurriedly said, "With the saints' help, the Pavilion of Swords will definitely prosper." 7 kills did not care and did not say a word. Li Xiaotian looked at Song Yu with a smile and said, "Please take care of us in the future." Song Yu said with a fake smile, "Don't mention it. Please take care of us, Saint. This way we can all better serve the Lord." Li Xiaotian nodded her head, her smile becoming more and more profound, which made Song Yu's scalp go numb. He always felt that Li Xiaotian's smile had too many things to think about. "You must remember that I have high hopes for you. I hope that you will live up to my good intentions," the Lord warned. "Yes," the 3 said in unison. In addition, the Lord changed the topic. "I have something for you to do." Song Yu hurriedly said, "Please tell us, Lord. We will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire." The Lord nodded and said, "Actually, it is very suitable for you to do this." Song Yu's heart trembled, and he began to hesitate. What was the most suitable thing for him to do? Could it be something dangerous? If that was the case, he would be pushing himself into a fire pit. Chapter 865. The High Lord looked at Song Yu, who was pretending to be calm, and said, "You have connections with the Rockefeller family, right?" "What does that mean?" Song Yu was at a loss, but still nodded without hesitation. "Yes. This kind of thing definitely couldn't fool the High Lord. Lying would only make him lose his trust. Tang Zheng caused havoc with the Rockefeller family in the Atlantic Empire, and even killed their young Lord Louis. He has a blood feud with this family, and they have always been looking for an opportunity to take revenge." Song Yu nodded. He had heard about this matter, and was also very shocked at the time. In fact, Song Yu also contributed a lot to Louis being able to kidnap so many people to Sky Mountain. It was just that he didn't know Louis's true goal. Later, Louis died, and he didn't dare to connect this matter to himself, afraid that Tang Zheng would pursue this matter and deal with him. Recently, a business delegation from the Atlantic Empire has entered the capital. The Rockefeller family's people are definitely hiding among them. They will definitely target Tang Zheng for revenge. "Go and contact the Rockefeller family's people and help them," the High Lord ordered. Song Yu's eyes lit up. He thought to himself, "Tang Zheng, you've made enemies everywhere. Now it's time for you to be unlucky." The Rockefeller family was a world-class behemoth, even more powerful than the other families. The other families only had influence in Wuxia, but the Rockefeller family had influence in several countries. They were on completely different levels. If the Rockefeller family didn't have such a great influence, Song Yu wouldn't have pretended to be polite to Louis and helped him. However, he was still a little worried. If he returned to the capital and was discovered by Tang Zheng, he would definitely be killed. "What are you worried about?" Seeing him hesitate, the High Lord asked in a deep voice. Song Yu's heart thumped. He knew that his hesitation made the High Lord unhappy. He hurriedly said, "High Lord, the capital is Tang Zheng's sphere of influence. If I go, I'm afraid I'll be discovered before I even see the Rockefeller family." "Humph, didn't you grow up in the capital? Don't tell me you don't even have this little bit of ability?" the High Lord reprimanded in displeasure. Song Yu braced himself to face the Great Lord's wrath. However, for the sake of his own life, even if he was going against the Great Lord, He still wanted to say a few more words. My lord, what I'm saying is, can we secretly add fuel to the fire and blow things up? Even if Tang Zheng escapes, we can make it so that he can't clean up the mess. That way, we'll be able to take advantage of the situation. Song Yu suddenly had an idea and said, "Oh, do you have an idea?" Honorable Lord, when Tang Zheng wreaked havoc on the island nation, although ordinary people didn't know that he was the one who did it, we knew very well that the royal family of the island nation hated him to the core. Moreover, the current emperor of the island nation is Hirohito, who was captured by him. His hatred for Tang Zheng is endless. As long as we leak a bit of information, the island nation will definitely take action. When the time comes, the island nation and Rockefeller will both attack. Tang Zheng won't be able to do anything by himself. It's not impossible for him to die just like that. Song Yu's lips curled into a sinister smile as he proudly offered a plan. The great lord pondered. He knew more than Song Yu. The island nation's situation wasn't simple. When 100 Faces Star-Lord activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array in the island nation, it was almost impossible without the support of the royal family of the island nation. Therefore, 100 Faces Star-Lord had already colluded with the royal family of the island nation. If the royal family of the island nation took action, they might be able to lure 100 Faces Star-Lord out. Because of the existence of Ling, the Great Lord temporarily gave up the idea of dealing with Tang Zheng personally, but this didn't prevent him from dealing with 100 Faces Star-Lord. 100 Faces Star-Lord had parted ways with Tang Zheng and disappeared without a trace. Getting rid of 100 Faces Star-Lord first was also something worth celebrating for the Great Lord. Of course, if 100 Faces Star-Lord took advantage of this opportunity to kill Tang Zheng and others with Rockefeller, it would be even more perfect. The Great Lord didn't have such a strong desire to kill Tang Zheng before, but now he really wanted to kill him. If there was a chance, he naturally wouldn't let it go. As for the fact that Ling broke his non-phase method, he had been brooding about it. It finally made him understand that there was such a simple person in the world. However, he didn't immediately send someone to assassinate Ling. First, Tang Zheng must have sent someone to protect her. Second, he believed that time could change everything. Even if Ling was now a piece of white paper, over time, this white paper would be painted with colorful colors. At that time, she would have no way to resist non-phase method, and Tang Zheng would naturally have no support. It was the best policy to break by oneself. Your method is feasible. You just have to execute it. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. The Great Lord agreed. Song Yu was overjoyed. Yes, Song Yu accepts the order. Since you are worried that you will be threatened when you return to the capital, I will let the Holy Maiden accompany you back to the capital. You will cooperate sincerely and do this matter well, understand? The Great Lord added. Song Yu's face stiffened, and her heart secretly said that it was not good. Li Xiaotian had been following her. He was afraid that he would reveal any clues and let her discover his secret. But the Great Lord had already made a decision, and he could not question or change it. He could only pretend to be happy and say a lot of flattery. You can withdraw. The Great Lord waved her hand and said. Several people respectfully withdrew from the dark room, and the door closed. Fairface Flying Dragon came out of the darkness and stood beside the Great Lord. Looking at the closed door, he said, "Can they succeed?" "No," the Great Lord said without hesitation. "Then why did the Great Lord send them?" Fairface Flying Dragon asked curiously. "I will not give Tang Zheng a chance to breathe. He is too unpredictable. I used to think that he was a controllable factor, but now it seems that I really underestimated him. He has created miracles again and again, turning the impossible into possible. If we can get rid of him as soon as possible, that would be the best." The Great Lord said coldly. Fairface Flying Dragon sighed and said, "If I had known earlier, I would have killed him in Emperor Qin's tomb. At that time, we did not expect that he would rise so quickly, and even become the key to everything." The Great Lord said regretfully, "Although we suffered heavy losses in this trip to the 100,000 mountains, it was not completely without gain. At least, we can be sure that our main enemy from now on is Tang Zheng, and not the 100 Change Star Sovereign." The Great Lord's attitude towards Tang Zheng had completely changed. He really wanted to kill him, but he knew that to kill Tang Zheng it would not be easy. Now that I am heavily injured, I cannot deal with him in a short period of time, but I cannot let him rest. Otherwise, if we give him a chance to breathe and he does something again, we will be even more passive. Do you understand? The Great Lord asked. Fair-faced Flying Dragon suddenly understood. I understand, but can the two of them do it? Do you want me to lend them a hand? No need, you can start cultivating in seclusion. Also, don't look down on Songyu, that child is not as simple as he looks. Although he pretends to be docile and respectful in front of me, it still reveals many problems. He has not truly submitted to me, and 7 kills is even more loyal. But it is clear that 7 kills is not a match for him, so I will let the Saintess participate and balance Songyu. If Songyu heard this, he would definitely be scared to the point of running away. He would not dare to stay in Sword Pavilion, nor would he dare to have the extravagant hope of turning Sword Pavilion into his own force. The Great Lord is wise. But it is a pity that we cannot completely eliminate Tang Zheng. This time, he injured the Great Lord and killed so many of our flying guillotines. He is truly hateful. Fair-faced Flying Dragon's eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke hatefully. Lord Yun laughed self-deprecatingly and said, "This time, I failed miserably. That little girl shot an arrow through the left side of my chest. If it wasn't for my heart being on the right side, I'm afraid that arrow would have ended my life. As for the flying guillotines, although it is a pity, it did not harm the flying guillotine's foundation." Fair-faced Flying Dragon faintly sighed. Yes, the flying guillotine's power is still there. We can still deal with them in the future. During my seclusion, Granny Li went to the northwest. It is not very peaceful there. Elder Angler does not care about worldly affairs, so I will leave the matter of the Azure Dragon Hall to you. The Great Lord said. Yes, Great Lord. During your seclusion, your non-phase method will definitely have a breakthrough and reach the Deshang realm. Fair-faced Flying Dragon said. I hope so. I have already practiced the non-phase method to the 5th level, so I can say 5 words. When I practice to the 6th level and master it, I will be able to say 6 words at the same time. At that time, even if Lingair is here, we may be able to restrain her. The Great Lord said with some expectation. It will definitely be possible. Fair-faced Flying Dragon nodded. Songyu and the others went down the mountain and met the Elder Angler. His basket was already full of fish, but he poured all of them into the pond and let them go. Songyu was puzzled. She whispered to Li Xiaotian, Saintess, who is this senior? This method of fishing is very novel. Moreover, he catches the fish and then lets them go. What is the point of fishing? It is really strange. Li Xiaotian deeply looked at the Elder Angler's back as he walked away and said, He is called the Elder Angler. As for his method of fishing, I am not clear. In this world, he is probably the only one who can do this. He comes here almost every day to fish, and when he is done, he lets them go. This cycle repeats. Songyu clicked her tongue in wonder. She said that this senior was really a strange person. She changed the topic and asked, Just now, I didn't dare to ask Great Lord. Is this the Azure Dragon Hall? He had heard of the Azure Dragon Hall before. When he was reading the sword manual in the Sword Pavilion, he had read a few words about it. Only then did he gradually understand that the Azure Dragon Hall, which had been unknown to outsiders, was actually the master behind the Sword Pavilion. Looking at Li Xiaotian's reaction, it was likely that Li Palace was the same as Sword Pavilion, under the jurisdiction of the Azure Dragon Hall. As a result, Songyu felt even more terrified of the Azure Dragon Hall. It must be known that the Song family was very afraid of Li Palace. They wagged their tails and begged for pity in order to establish a relationship with Li Palace. Now, it seemed that Li Palace was just a puppet that floated on the surface. The Azure Dragon Hall was the most powerful. Chapter 866. In the capital, Songyu and Li Xiaotian arrived together. Revisiting this place, Songyu's emotions fluctuated as he sighed with emotion. He used to be an all-powerful figure here, But now he was a stray dog and had to sneak in. Li Xiaotian glanced at him from the corner of her eye and said, Song Yu, I saw you practice in the sword pavilion and your swordsmanship has improved greatly. Congratulations. Song Yu smiled bitterly and said, Saintess, you flatter me. How can my mediocre skills be compared to yours? Li Xiaotian smiled charmingly and said, This time, you will be in charge of the matters in the capital. I will only assist you. So if there is any danger, you must protect me. I have admired the successor of the sword pavilion for a long time. Although Song Yu knew that the other party's words were false, he couldn't help but feel a ripple in his heart. The Li Palace Saintess is indeed extraordinary. Her charm is unparalleled. I must be more careful in the future. He secretly thought. The island nation has already sent people to the capital. If we join forces with Rockefeller, then we can sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Li Xiaotian said, Your scheme is really brilliant. Saintess, you flatter me. This is all because of the wise leadership of the Honorable Lord. I dare not claim credit for it. Song Yu was very respectful, as if even if the Honorable Lord was not by his side, he would still hold him in high esteem. They did not take the usual route. They did not enter the hotel through the normal channels, but took advantage of the night to sneak in through the window. As soon as their feet touched the ground, a biting cold wind attacked them from the side, causing their cheeks to hurt. Swish! With a flash of the sword, Song Yu had a long sword in his hand and stabbed it into the darkness. Clang! With a dull sound, his long sword formed a full moon shape. It was obvious that the strength of the attack was great. Who is it? There was an angry shout in the darkness, but it was in English. We are not enemies. Song Yu also hurriedly replied in English, afraid that the situation would worsen. The lights above their heads lit up, and they could finally see each other clearly. Song Yu was shocked. It turned out that the other party was only one person. But the attack just now was so fierce that he felt a lingering fear. If they were to continue fighting, he might not even be a match for him. Who are you? Song Yu said, We know the purpose of the Rockefeller family coming to Beijing, so we're here to help you. Besides, I'm Louis's friend. You know my son? The other party asked in surprise. This person was the head of the Rockefeller family, the primogenitor of the kindred. Ah, you are Mr. Nikolai? Song Yu exclaimed. She suddenly remembered a photo of Nicholas in a news report. It was indeed the person in front of her. The ancestor's name was Nicholas Rockefeller. He stared at the two of them. His blue eyes were so cold that they seemed to hide thousands of miles of ice and snow mountains. Who are you? Nikolai asked. Song Yu hurriedly introduced himself. When Louis was in Wuxia, he and I were best friends. This humble one is Song Yu. Song Yu, I've heard of your name. You are the young master of the Song family, but the Song family is now gone. Why are you looking for me? Nikolai still had the attitude of 1,000 miles away. Song Yu's heart flashed with a trace of unnaturalness. The Song family was gone, so his status was naturally gone. The other party obviously didn't think much of him. He hurriedly adjusted his attitude and said, I know you came to Beijing to deal with Tang Zheng. He is our common enemy. I can help you. Oh, as far as I know, you don't dare to show up in Beijing. How can you help me? Nikolai sat back in the chair and motioned for the two to sit down and talk. Song Yu had already thought of a response. She said calmly, Although I don't dare to show up, I am the person who knows Tang Zheng's situation the best. If you have my help, you can take fewer detours and get twice the result with half the effort. It will be easier to succeed. What do you think? Although Nikolai had already sent people to investigate Tang Zheng, he was a foreign monk after all. He was not as good as Song Yu, the local snake. Song Yu must have information that he didn't know. Since the other party was here, he must have something. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. Then I'm interested to hear it, Mr. Song, Nikolai said. Seeing that he was interested, Song Yu's spirit was shaken. She said, I know Tang Zheng's fatal weakness. He is very strong, but this person is too fickle. He has left too many romantic debts. These women are his weakness. As long as we catch any one of them, we can make him obediently submit. Nikolai frowned. It's just women. If they are gone, we can find another. Are they really that important? Song Yu chuckled. Some people claim to be infatuated. Of course, they can't just watch their women die. Nikolai recalled the scene when Tang Zheng went thousands of miles to the Atlantic Empire to rescue Fang Shirshir. In his heart, he believed 70% of these words. Seeing that he tacitly agreed, Song Yu continued, he has many women around him. If we only deal with one, the success rate is too low. So, as long as we attack together, there will always be someone who will fall into our hands. Once we catch one, it will be easy. If we can catch a few more, then victory is in our hands. Li Xiaotian was expressionless. She already knew about this plan. Although she was also a woman and scoffed at this method of using women to threaten people, she had to admit that this was an effective method for Tang Zheng. She had been by Tang Zheng's side for a long time, and could be considered to know him very well. She knew that women were his reverse scale. Then what women does he have? Nikolai asked curiously. Yi Dingdang. Song Yu was the first to say this name, which made his heart ache. His relationship with Yi Dingdang had changed again and again. In fact, he had long had feelings for Yi Dingdang in his heart. But if he couldn't get her, he had to destroy her. He couldn't let Tang Zheng take advantage of her for nothing. Fang Shirshir, Lu Qingmei, Mu Hongyan, and even the famous Princess An. Nikolai's eyes lit up. With so many targets, the possibility of success was greatly increased. Except for Anne, I don't want to mess with the European royal family for the time being. Everyone else is fine, especially that Fang Shirshir. My son's death can't be separated from her. This time I came to kill her. Nikolai hated Fang Shirshir to the bone. When Fang Shirshir escaped from his hands, it was the biggest insult to him. In order to wash away his shame, of course he couldn't let her go. Song Yu snapped his fingers and said proudly, "You have the final say. Oh, there is also a little one, Mu Hongyan's daughter Nana. Tang Zheng loves her very much. It will be better if we catch her." He didn't even let a child go. Nikolai drank human blood all year round, and didn't have any psychological barriers. He nodded in agreement without hesitation. "What do you want from helping me like this?" Nikolai stared coldly at Song Yu and asked. Song Yu smiled confidently. "I don't want anything. As long as Tang Zheng dies, I will be satisfied." "Don't worry, this time he will definitely die. Not only will he die, but the people around him will also die." Nikolai said resolutely. "That's the best. This is the information of those women. You can study it more." Song Yu handed Nikolai a flash drive. "I will wait for your good news. Oh, I also want to remind you that Tang Zheng has a woman called Fu Yao. She is very powerful. You have to be careful of her." "Humph." Nikolai snorted. He didn't put the Empyrean fairy in his eyes. The two said their goodbyes and jumped out of the window. After walking a few streets, Li Xiaotian opened her mouth. "Do you think he will succeed?" Song Yu was full of confidence. The Rockefeller family isn't an ordinary family. Rumor has it that they are vampires. Not only are they powerful, but they also have many werewolves under them. Every one of them is very powerful. This time even Nikolai was sent out. I don't think Tang Zheng has any way to escape from death. The corner of Li Xiaotian's mouth revealed an unfathomable smile, and he thought with disdain in his heart. If Tang Zheng was really that easy to deal with, then this time, the High Lord would not have returned empty-handed. An idiot. You actually think that you can kill Tang Zheng. You think too highly of yourself. Li Xiaotian was the holy maiden of the Li Palace and the direct disciple of Granny Li. Naturally, her understanding of the Azure Dragon Hall and the High Lord far surpassed Song Yu. Granny Li had told Li Xiaotian part of the truth when everyone in the Li Palace retreated. Only then did she understand that the Li Palace and the Azure Dragon Hall had such a deep relationship. When she met the High Lord, she was even more convinced and wholeheartedly worked for the High Lord. This time, she was ordered by the High Lord to monitor Song Yu. In the end, the sword pavilion must not fall into Song Yu's hands and become his private property. Of course, the High Lord could directly kill Song Yu, but he was still very useful for the time being. The High Lord naturally wouldn't touch him. Li Xiaotian knew all of this inside information. So sometimes she looked at Songyu as if she was looking at a dead person. At the same time, Li Xiaotian was also shocked. She had been with Tang Zheng for many days, but she didn't expect him to reach this step. She often thought that if she had known earlier, the High Lord would have already made a move against Tang Zheng. He wouldn't have sat and watched him grow to such an uncontrollable extent. Of course, she still believed that the revered lord would definitely turn the tide and slap Tang Zheng to death on the beach. This was because after she understood the Azure Dragon Palace Hall's strength, her reverence and confidence towards the revered lord surged like a torrential river. Songyu didn't notice Li Xiaotian's strange behavior, and eagerly said, "Let's just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. When the people of the island nation join in, the show will be even more exciting. Hee, this time, the capital will definitely be turned upside down." The undercurrents in the capital were surging. Although Tang Zheng had absolute power in the capital, it was impossible for him to know everything. Naturally, he didn't know that a conspiracy against him was brewing in the dark. During this time he had been in seclusion, digesting what he had gained in the 100,000 mountains. Qi Yu and the inner demons would occasionally quarrel, so much so that it had almost become a part of his life. He didn't stop it because he had obtained a lot of useful information from it. During this time, the school had brought people to find him once, but he still flatly refused. The school returned disappointed and completely gave up on this idea. Tang Zheng really wouldn't return to Yenqing University. Chapter 867. Tang Zheng continued to cultivate in seclusion, sitting cross-legged on the cold ground alone. The thick walls blocked all the noise in the capital. The imperial city was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Only the slow breathing of the five-clawed golden dragon could be heard occasionally. Xiaobai squatted beside him, looking at him with bright eyes. Tang Zheng held a crystal stone in his hand. The crystal stone had already lost its luster, and most of the spiritual energy had been absorbed by it. Tang Zheng felt that there was enough spiritual energy in his meridians. He carefully guided it into the golden core. The golden core shone brightly, illuminating his dantian. Crack! Suddenly, with a crisp sound, the spirit stone broke into pieces and turned into powder, which flowed out from the gaps between his fingers. He took a deep breath. The air in the secret room seemed to have been sucked dry by him, and his muscles and bones made crackling sounds. Boom! A thunderous sound came from his organs. This was the effect of the resonance between the true qi and his body. The true qi surged and involuntarily accelerated in his meridians, like a torrential river. Tang Zheng watched as the golden core expanded from the size of a ping-pong ball to the size of a duck egg, flowing with golden light. 6th grade golden core. No. 7th grade golden core. Tang Zheng found that he had broken through 2 realms in a row. This was not only due to the powerful spiritual energy in the crystal, but also because of this trip to the 100,000 mountains. The harvest this time could be said to be very rich. Moreover, Qi Yu and the inner demons would occasionally bicker and unconsciously reveal some information, which benefited him a lot. Especially a few days ago, the two of them actually sat down and discussed Tao, talking about many things in cultivation, and their understanding of cultivation. These two were super powerhouses, and their understanding of cultivation was naturally not something that ordinary people could have. After listening to them, Tang Zheng was enlightened, so he was able to raise his cultivation by 2 levels with the help of the crystal. A 7th grade golden core was not far from the Yuanying realm. He was full of confidence and could not help but roar. He looked at the crystal powder on the ground and couldn't help but feel regretful. This was a good thing. The King of Sweden had only given him one, and the other was given to Tian Chanzi. He had already given it to Tian Chanzi. He still remembered the scene when Tian Chanzi saw the crystal. He was so surprised that he almost jumped up in joy. Tian Chanzi's cultivation had reached level 9 of Yuanying. He was only 1 step away from the Dasheng realm. It was time for him to consolidate his cultivation. With the help of the crystal stones, his cultivation would be as stable as a rock, and there was hope for him to advance to the next level. This was indeed something that he should be happy about. Tian Chanzi told Tang Zheng that even in the former cultivation world, This kind of crystal stone was extremely rare. Spirit stones were already considered good treasures for cultivation. Only some heads of famous sects had 1 or 2 crystal stones. It was said that the crystal stones were stones from the outside world. They could only be found by chance and not by searching for them. Spirit stones were not like spirit stones. Spirit stones were born by the world itself. Once the world's spiritual chi was abundant, the earth would be nourished by the spiritual chi. Some stones would gather spiritual chi, and over time they would form spirit stones. However, now that the world's spiritual chi was exhausted, there were naturally very few spirit stones. They only found one in ordinary Balance's grave, but it had already been used up by their cultivation. However, Tianchanzi asserted that once the Tree of Life completely transformed the world's spiritual chi, it would once again produce spirit stones in the future. After Tianchanzi received the spirit stones, he eagerly went to guide and for a long time, which could be considered as returning the kindness of giving the crystal stones. This behavior made Tang Zheng despise him for a long time. He said that he was greedy for money. Without the crystal stones, he almost forgot about his apprentice. The 5-clawed golden dragon stared at Tang Zheng with wide eyes and said happily, "You have to work hard on your cultivation. Don't be distracted by other things. It won't be long before you can save me." Tang Zheng smiled faintly. "Okay. AI, that Empyrean fairy is too arrogant. When I regain my freedom in the future, let's see how she can be arrogant in front of me." The 5-clawed golden dragon was still brooding over the Empyrean fairy's refusal to save him. When he thought about it, his anger was still not small. Tang Zheng asked curiously, "You said that you are imprisoned in this array and your strength is greatly reduced. When you regain your freedom, how powerful will you be?" The 5-clawed golden dragon smiled mysteriously. "You will naturally know when the time comes. What are your plans after regaining your freedom?" Tang Zheng had never asked this question before. Now that the 5-clawed golden dragon's freedom was getting closer and closer, he had no choice but to ask. The 5-clawed golden dragon was silent for a while and said, "The people who imprisoned me are already dead. Even the dynasty has been destroyed. It is already impossible to find the culprit. Humph, but after imprisoning me for so many years, I will not give up just like that." The 5-clawed golden dragon's anger was not small. Tang Zheng was nervous and said, "Could it be that you want to find someone to take revenge?" "Of course. But aren't those people already dead? But the humans are still here. Could it be that you want to deal with the humans?" Tang Zheng asked cautiously. The 5-clawed golden dragon looked at Tang Zheng. "You want to stop me? I am also a human. Haha, you are a celestial. Moreover, you have also cultivated the dragon god arts. You are completely different from a human." The 5-clawed golden dragon retorted, "No matter what you think, I always think of myself as a human. Although I promise to let you go, but if you really insist on going against innocent humans, then I will not sit idly by." Tang Zheng's tone was firm. He did not care at all about the 5-clawed golden dragon's raging eyes. The 5-clawed golden dragon's nostrils exhaled a hot breath. Tang Zheng was not afraid. He raised his head and stared at the 5-clawed golden dragon. "Killing innocent people is not the style of your dragon race. If you want to deal with the culprit who imprisoned you, then I will not stop you. But if you want to deal with other innocent people, then I will not sit idly by. If you really do not change your mind, then perhaps you can only stay in this dark place forever." "Impudent! You dare to threaten me?" The 5-clawed golden dragon was furious. He opened his mouth and a gust of wind almost blew Tang Zheng down. "I am not threatening you. I am just warning you in advance," Tang Zheng said calmly. Seeing Tang Zheng's firm attitude, the 5-clawed golden dragon angrily turned his head and did not talk to him anymore. Tang Zheng could not see through his thoughts. Since he did not agree with him, he did not continue to talk. In any case, he could not go out for the time being. "Xiaobai, let's go." Tang Zheng called Xiaobai and left the imperial city. The 5-clawed golden dragon turned his head after a long time. He looked at the empty corridor and muttered to himself, "He is really stubborn. But now my freedom is in his hands. If I don't agree, he will not let me go." He was not a stupid dragon. he could still judge the situation. However, he dares to threaten me. He really has guts. Well, Celestials have always had guts. After Tang Zheng left the Imperial City, the inner demons exclaimed loudly. You actually have a connection with a dragon. Haha, this is really interesting. Qiyu, you were also a Celestial in the past, but you did not catch a dragon, right? Qiyu coldly snorted. Dragons are creatures from the outer space. Do you think it is so easy to catch them? You see, didn't he just imprison a dragon? The inner demons retorted. I did not imprison it. Tang Zheng defended himself. But now his freedom is in your hands, which is equivalent to you imprisoning him. Hee, to imprison a dragon while I'm still alive, how interesting. If I can take him under my wing and use him for my own purposes, I'll definitely be able to take him under my wing. Qiyu, this dragon is much more powerful than those monsters under your command. The inner demons did not let go of the opportunity to provoke Qiyu. Qiyu simply chose to remain silent. When Tang Zheng heard the words creatures from the outer space, he became even more interested in the dragon race. In the past, there was no one to answer his questions. Now that there was Qiyu and the inner demons, he could not miss this opportunity to ask for guidance. Qiyu, you said that the dragon race is creatures from the outer space. Which world do they come from? Tang Zheng curiously asked. The dragon race has a long history. It is said that not long after our world was created, the dragon race entered our world from another world. Since then, the dragon race has appeared from time to time. Because the dragon race is very mysterious and powerful, the people of this world worship the dragon race. Thus, the dragon race is regarded as a spiritual totem. As for which world the dragon race came from, I do not know. Tang Zheng suddenly understood. So that was how the dragon race came to be. However, even Qiyu did not know the origin of the dragon race. That could only mean that the dragon race was much more mysterious and powerful than Tang Zheng thought. Perhaps only the dragon race themselves could answer this question. Suddenly, a bright light flashed in his heart. He cultivated the dragon god's secret art, and even cultivated the dragon seal. Would he know this secret in the future? He could not help but look forward to it. However, there was no progress in the dragon god's secret art for the time being. He also did not have a way to test the possibility of this idea. Young man, why do you care about this? If you take this dragon under your command, it will certainly be very beneficial to you in the future. The inner demons enticed. Oh, if I really subdue it, then my strength will be even stronger. This won't do you any good, right? Tang Zheng said meaningfully. The inner demons was suddenly startled. They seemed to realize that Tang Zheng's words were reasonable. For a moment, they were speechless. After a long time, they resentfully said, This shows that I really care about you. I am not like Qiyu, feigning civility and secretly spying on you. Inner demons, you are talking nonsense again. How am I talking nonsense? I am clearly speaking the truth. The two of them quarreled again. Tang Zheng gradually got used to this kind of thing. He simply ignored it and returned home. At dawn, the group of people ate breakfast and went to work or school. Feng Shishir spent every day in the library because the final exams were approaching. As the transfer to Yenqing University for the first semester, she wanted to hand in a perfect answer sheet. Lan Yu also dragged Wu to buy groceries early in the morning. During this period of time, she changed every day to make delicious food for Tang Zheng. The others also followed along to enjoy the good food. The mysterious Nine Heavens maiden also brought Nan Nan to do morning exercises, saying that she was in contact with nature. This was one of Nanan's favorite activities, but the only regret was that brother Tang Zheng could not come along. When the Empyrean fairy guided Nana in cultivation, no one was allowed to disturb them. Even Tang Zheng did not have the qualifications, so he did not join in the fun. In the end, he was left alone at home. Looking at the empty house, he could not help but shake his head and smile bitterly. The others envied him for living in a country of women. In fact, because there were too many people, he could not get close to them. Chapter 868. Feng Shishir had already transferred to another school for some time, and she had become familiar with the students around her. With her natural beauty and gentle personality, she quickly won the hearts of her classmates and almost became the only focus of attention in the class. This naturally attracted the attention of other boys, but she deliberately kept a distance from them to prevent herself from being involved in gossip. Early in the morning, she walked into the campus alone and headed towards the classroom. Thinking back to when she left the house, she hid in the corner and lightly kissed Tang Zheng. Her little heart thumped fiercely and the corner of her mouth couldn't help but ripple with a smile. He's getting bolder and bolder. There are so many people at home, and he dares to kiss me. Actually, during this period of time, she also wanted to be alone with Tang Zheng, but there were too many people at home, and the two of them didn't have the time and space to be intimate. The sun shone around her, and her floral dress fluttered in the wind. She was like a butterfly, bathed in the sun, and was especially charming. Many men passing by saw her, and their eyes were fixed on her. Some even directly bumped into the trunk of a tree, causing the others to burst into laughter. Suddenly, there was a scream in front of her, and a large group of students crazily rushed over. She jumped in fright. What happened? The students brushed past her, and some of them bumped into her, causing her to stagger and almost fall. She tiptoed and stretched her neck to look in that direction, but she couldn't see anything. Something must have happened. Could it be a criminal? Nowadays, school violence was happening from time to time. As a person with a sense of justice, and with outstanding skills, how could she sit back and do nothing? So she went against the flow and quickly rushed over. When the others saw this, someone kindly reminded her, "Student, quickly go, there's murder over there." Murder? Feng Shishir was shocked, and wanted to stop the crime even more. She shouted, "Make way, make way." She rushed over. Suddenly, a few people who looked like international students ran in front of her. She didn't care and was about to brush past them. Suddenly, a few large hands reached out from different directions, directly grabbing her vital parts. It happened so suddenly that she was completely unprepared. Suddenly, when those large hands touched her body, a ray of light rippled out from her body. Bang, 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 with a series of muffled sounds. Those people were all bounced back by a huge force. Feng Shishir reacted as if she had just woken up from a dream. With a tap of her toes, she slid back a distance away from him and stared straight at him. "Who are you?" These people all had Western faces. They were tall and strong and had an extraordinary aura. They were definitely not ordinary international students. "Come with us and you'll suffer less," one of them said in stiff Wuxia language. "You want me to leave without saying anything? No way." Feng Shishir scolded, but she was still a little scared. If it wasn't for the golden jade purple robe protecting her, she would have been killed by these people. Then she wouldn't have had the chance to fight back. These people obviously did not expect that the plan they had planned for a long time would fail. Immediately, they became even angrier and roared. "Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame us for being impolite." Several people attacked together. Their huge arms were full of blue veins, showing their terrifying strength. Feng Shishir's slender hand gently pointed out, but there was the sound of wind and thunder. The two sides' attacks were completely different. One was fierce and overbearing, while the other was graceful and agile. Bang, bang, bang. In the blink of an eye, the two sides exchanged several moves. Feng Shishir was shocked. These people were definitely not ordinary martial artists. That strange and incomparable strength and the gradually exposed ferocious and terrifying aura gave her a feeling of déjà vu, werewolves. A light flashed in her mind. She finally remembered and blurted out. Hearing these two words, the other party was surprised. "You saw through us so quickly. Then we won't hide anymore." Roar, roar, roar. Several deafening roars sounded. These people transformed. Lush hair grew out of their pores. In the blink of an eye, they became tall and ferocious werewolves. Pairs of blue eyes stared at Feng Shishir. They had a bestial impulse to choose a person to devour. Ah, monsters murder. The people around were frightened and screamed. They fled in all directions, looking at this scene in horror. Some people were so scared that they fell to the ground. They didn't have the strength to escape. Feng Shishir shouted at the people around her. Run! But there were still a few girls lying on the ground, unable to move. They were like a pear blossom in the rain, like a pool of mud. Feng Shishir sighed. Her figure flashed, grabbed the collars of several people, and threw them into the distance. She didn't want these people to have any accidents because of her. She couldn't bear it. At the moment she moved, the werewolves also moved. They roared with their bestial instincts and attacked Feng Shishir with their sharp claws. Feng Shishir had just thrown her classmates out when she felt a biting cold wind behind her. With a thought, the belt on her body released a rainbow light and flew up. Rainbow silk. This was the first time she used the rainbow silk in a real battle, but she had practiced it many times and was already used to it. With a flash of light, the soft rainbow silk danced and wrapped around a werewolf, lifting his body up. Puff puff puff. Flowers of blood immediately bloomed on the werewolf's body. He was cut open by his companion, whose sharp claws killed him immediately. This scene was very bloody, but Feng Shishir had already seen more bloody battles, so she didn't feel uncomfortable. On the contrary, she was surprisingly calm and her brain started to think quickly. The werewolves came to capture her, which meant that Rockefeller's people had come. Last time, she had cleverly escaped from the Atlantic Empire. The other party was unwilling to give up and actually chased her all the way to Wuxia. Rockefeller is vicious and merciless. I must inform Tangzheng as soon as possible. She thought, but she didn't have the strength. One werewolf died, but the other werewolves became crazier and their attacks became fiercer. For a moment, Feng Shishir didn't have the chance to call Tangzheng. The ancestor has ordered that if she resists stubbornly, we can kill her directly, a werewolf shouted. Nikolai hated Feng Shishir very much, so he would rather kill her directly. Yes, kill her. As soon as he said this, the other werewolves' morale was greatly boosted. There was a world of difference between capturing alive and killing. Killing Feng Shishir was obviously easier than capturing her alive. Thus, the werewolves attacked left and right, cooperating with each other tacitly, and actually forcing Feng Shishir to retreat. These werewolves weren't ordinary people, especially when they attacked together like this. Their power was greatly increased. Therefore, even though Feng Shishir had a heaven-grade magic treasure like the rainbow damask, she was still in a tight spot, and was surrounded by danger. Feng Shishir fought as she retreated. Suddenly, the sound of fighting came from behind her. She looked out of the corner of her eyes, and widened her eyes in surprise. Yi Dingdang. Yi Dingdang was also attacked, and she was also surrounded by werewolves. Yi Dingdang's clear wind sword wasn't like the rainbow silk, which could be casually carried on her body. She picked up a tree branch and barely dealt with the attacks. Feng Shishir suddenly shivered, realizing that the situation was more serious than she thought. The werewolves attacking her made sense, but for them to attack Yi Dingdang from so far away, this was thought-provoking. Tangzheng's relationship with Yi Dingdang obviously couldn't be hidden from her, but the Rockefeller family might not necessarily know. And they attacked her and Yi Dingdang at the same time, which showed that the other party's intentions were sinister. Not only did they target her, but they also targeted everyone who had a close relationship with Tangzheng. Feng Shishir was astute and intelligent. These days, she had already seen that other than Yi Dingdang, Tangzheng and Marshall definitely had that kind of relationship. In addition, she even guessed that Tangzheng and Lu Qingmei also had an unclear relationship. Although the two of them had a teacher-student relationship on the surface, based on a woman's sixth sense, there were times when Lu Qingmei looked at Tangzheng with eyes full of love, which definitely couldn't be faked. She was very confident in her own judgment. Because of this, Rockefeller wouldn't just attack her and Yi Dingdang. The others would also suffer an unexpected calamity. I must immediately inform the others. She thought decisively, but this was just a beautiful, extravagant hope. She didn't have the time to care about anything else. Yi Dingdang also saw Feng Shishir and was shocked. She asked, "What's going on?" "They are Rockefeller werewolves. They came for me and Tangzheng, but they also targeted you. I'm sorry to have involved you," Feng Shishir said apologetically. Yi Dingdang was carefree, so of course she didn't care if she was involved or not. Back at the martial arts convention, she had seen the power of the werewolves and didn't have the slightest good impression of this group of ferocious fellows. A group of beasts wants to kill me? Dream on. Yi Dingdang was flustered and exasperated. The branch in her hand tapped rapidly, grasping the essence of the wind-chasing swordsmanship. Now her attainments in the wind-chasing swordsmanship were even more powerful than Tang Zhang's. Even if it was a branch, she could unleash great power in her hands. Blood flowed from the werewolf's body where it was tapped, and the werewolf cried out in pain. But this was only a branch after all, so it couldn't be compared to a real sword. A werewolf broke the branch with one swipe of its claw and slapped at her face with its sharp claws. Careful. Seeing this, Fang Shishir flicked her wrist. The rainbow ribbon flew in front of Yi Dingdang and wrapped around the sharp claws, blocking the attack for Yi Dingdang. Yi Dingdang looked at her with a complicated expression. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "Thank you." She flipped her palm and slapped the werewolf's body. With a crack, the claws were directly broken. She was temporarily out of danger. Suddenly, she saw a ferocious figure appear behind Fang Shishir. She was shocked and cried out, "Be careful behind you." But Fang Shishir was too late. This time, the one attacking her wasn't a werewolf, but a mysterious vampire. Moreover, it had suddenly descended from the sky, making it impossible to guard against. The vampire was wearing a huge cloak. The cloak covered Fang Shishir's head, and a cold light flashed. Chapter 869. Seeing Fang Shishir fly out in a bloody mess, Yi Dingdang screamed in fright. "Fang Shishir, are you all right?" There were several deep wounds on Fang Shishir's face, almost to the point where her bones could be seen. It was unknown if she was still alive. Yi Dingdang's eyes widened as anger surged within her. Fang Shishir had sacrificed so much to save her. These werewolves really deserved to die. She roared angrily and charged towards a werewolf without any regard for her own safety. Pooh! The werewolf's sharp claws tore through her sleeves, leaving a shallow scratch mark on her white arm that was bleeding profusely. She gritted her teeth and endured the pain. Using her hand like a sword, sword chi burst forth, and with a piu-chi sound, it pierced through the werewolf's heart. She suddenly pulled back and pulled the heart out. The werewolf cried out miserably and fell to the ground. She suddenly turned around and stared at another werewolf. The werewolf subconsciously took a step back when her gaze swept over him. "What are you standing there for? She's only one person. Are you afraid of her?" The vampire flew back and scolded in a stern voice. This vampire was clearly the leader of this group. With a single order, the werewolves fiercely charged forward once again. Whoosh! Yi Dingdang suddenly discovered that there was another person beside her. Fang Shishir. She was pleasantly surprised to find that she was fine. Even the wounds on her face were gone. Her skin was as smooth as before with only a few streaks of blood left. "You." She clearly saw Fang Shishir's skin and flesh split open. How could she be fine in the blink of an eye? This healing speed was too shocking. "We'll talk about it later." Fang Shishir knew that this was because she had gained some vampire abilities, such as self-healing. She couldn't help but be glad that she had profited from this disaster. Yi Dingding knew that now wasn't the time to get to the bottom of things. She nodded and said, "Then let's fight our way out together." Two delicate voices sounded and two moving figures attacked the enemy. In the blink of an eye, the two sides were fighting again. All of a sudden, the werewolves exploded with blood and collapsed to the ground. Everyone was shocked by this scene and turned their heads to look, only to find a few people standing beside the werewolf's corpse. They had no idea when these people had arrived. When Yi Dingdang saw them, she was pleasantly surprised. "It's you guys?" These people were actually Tang Zheng's three roommates, Sinosaurus, Zhou Yan and Wang Shiji. Tang Zheng had already taught them the god-killing tactics, and had also given them Peiyuan Dan to wash their marrow and change their physique. They had been cultivating for some time now and had made some small achievements, especially Sinosaurus, who had the mountain-shattering meteor hammer, and was the strongest of the three. They rushed over when they heard the fighting, and happened to see a group of werewolves attacking Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishir. How could they sit by and do nothing? Thus, They launched a silent sneak attack and killed 3 werewolves in one go. Their morale was greatly boosted and they said passionately, "Don't worry with us here, no one can hurt you." Yi Dingdang never thought that even Tang Zheng's 3 roommates would become cultivators with extraordinary strength. However, at this moment, she was somewhat glad. Without these 3 people, her and Fang Shishi's situation would be even worse. The vampires were extremely anxious when they saw that the other party had come to help. This was a university campus, and their movements were so loud that the police would probably arrive soon. At that time, it would be even more difficult to catch these 2 people. Speak of the devil. The sound of sirens came from afar, and police cars rushed over from all directions. This was Yanqing University, Wuxia's top university. With such a terrible case happening, the police naturally couldn't ignore it. Even the special police team came, armed with live ammunition, and quickly surrounded them. Seeing this, the vampires glared at their 2 targets and roared, "Retreat!" They turned around and flew into the sky. "Stay here." Fang Shisha was unable to restrain her anger. She roared and waved her arm. The rainbow ribbon expanded and wrapped around the vampires. The vampires struggled but still couldn't escape from the rainbow ribbon. When the other werewolves saw this, they didn't have time to help and fled in all directions. "Stop!" Sinosaurus also roared. With a flash of light in his hand, the moon-shattering meteor hammer flew out and hit a werewolf. The werewolf's head was directly smashed into his body, and he staggered to the ground and died. Bang bang bang, a series of intense gunshots rang out, and the other werewolves also fell to the ground. After twitching a few times, they couldn't move anymore. The air was filled with the smell of smoke and blood. This area was completely under martial law, and the police with live ammunition stopped the onlookers who wanted to watch the show. Ka ka ka. The sound of guns being pulled could be heard. All the police pointed their guns at Fang Shisha and the others. Sinosaurus and the other 2 hurriedly stood in front of the 2 girls. Sinosaurus smiled and said, "Hee hee, don't misunderstand. We're on the same side, on the same side." However, the police didn't relax, especially the bodies of the werewolves on the ground. It made them feel like they were facing a great enemy. "Don't move!" The police roared. Fang Shisha was worried about Tang Zheng's comfort, and took out her phone. "I said don't move." The police glared, and was about to pull the trigger. A war seemed to be about to break out. "It's just a phone call. Why are you so nervous? We're all from Wuxia. Can't you be more polite?" Zhou also stood up. "Just make the call. I'll see who dares to shoot." The policemen looked at each other in dismay. In the end, they still let Fang Shisha make the call. "Hey Tangzheng, something happened. Rockefeller's people attacked me and Yi Dingdang. They tried to take us away." "Yes, we're fine now. I suspect that not only are they going to attack us, they're also going to harm the rest of the family." When Tangzheng heard this, he was already furious. He comforted Fang Shisha with a few words. Since the police had interfered, it would be safer to stay with the police for the time being. Then he began to call the others. Lu Qingmei and Mu Hongyan were on their way to work. He called for a long time, but no one answered. He thought to himself that something was wrong and rushed out of the villa, chasing after them on the road to work. During this time he dialed Wu's number again, but he heard some noise on the other side, as if there was an intense battle. "We were attacked. It was a werewolf." Wu Yin said calmly. "Are you all right?" Tang Zheng's head tightened. Fang Shisha guessed right. This time, Rockefeller was actually targeting everyone around him. It seemed that they were planning something big. "We're fine. It's just a few werewolves. Master's wife and I can take care of them." Wu said lightly. "This is Rockefeller's people coming to take revenge on me. Be careful. Don't let a single one of them go. Kill them all." Tangzheng gnashed his teeth and said fiercely, "No problem." Wu hung up the phone. Tangzheng's heart jumped even higher. He dialed Empyrean Fairy's number again. Empyrean Fairy's voice was somewhat puzzled. She asked first, "Why are there werewolves and bat demons in the capital? Did they escape from the 10,000 mountains?" Tangzheng's head darkened. It seemed that she was no exception. He hurriedly asked, "Are you and Nana injured? How can these weak monsters hurt me?" I'll kill them all. The mysterious maiden of the 9 heavens said calmly. Tang Zheng let out a sigh of relief and said, That's good. Protect Nana and quickly go home. Now that someone has come to find trouble with me, the people around me have all been attacked. Empyrean Fairy made a no sound and said, It seems that they didn't escape from the 10,000 mountains. Then where did they come from? Atlantic Empire, Rockefeller family. Never heard of it. Empyrean Fairy did not care at all. Relax. Nana is my disciple. How could I let her get hurt? We still have to continue our morning exercise. Let's not talk about it. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. Only the Empyrean Fairy was so skilled and daring. She did not put these things in her eyes at all. After such a thing happened, she still had to continue her morning exercise. Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. Now only Lu Qingmei and Mu Hongyan's safety was uncertain. But these two people were the ones he was most worried about, because they were the weakest. Nothing must happen to them. He anxiously muttered to himself. Like a gust of wind, he rushed through the streets. Lu Qingmei and Mu Hongyan drove to the company together as usual. Since joining the company, Lu Qingmei learned a lot from Mu Hongyan. She was gradually subdued by Mu Hongyan's charm. This single mother's business talent was amazing. She felt ashamed of her inferiority. Because of this, she had been humbly learning by Mu Hongyan's side. She improved very quickly. Lu Qingmei drove the car and chatted casually with Mu Hongyan. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The roof of the car caved in, as if something heavy had fallen on top of the car. Both of them were shocked, thinking that it was something that fell from a high altitude. Lu Qingmei reacted quickly and stepped on the brakes to stop the car. Rip. The sound of fabric tearing came from above. A ray of sunlight shone in from the car. The two of them quickly looked up and found that the roof of the car had been torn open, revealing a huge hole. A ferocious wolf head came into view. Roar! The werewolf roared. A stinky wind blew in their faces, blowing their hair. Mu Hongyan let out a shriek, terrified. Lu Qingmei was also shocked, but she immediately realized that something was wrong. She pointed at the werewolf, and the dragon trapping rope flew out and tied the werewolf up. Bang! The werewolf fell off the roof of the car while Lu Qingmei shouted, Sister Mu, sit tight. She suddenly started the car and rushed out like an arrow leaving the bow. Suddenly, the car's momentum came to an abrupt stop. Then it rose into the air. The two of them saw a huge werewolf stop the car and lift it up with both hands. Get out of the car! Lu Qingmei reacted quickly. She grabbed Mu Hongyan, kicked open the car door and jumped out. The two of them rolled on the ground and stood up. Only then did they see that they were surrounded by more than 10 werewolves. Mu Hongyan also gradually calmed down. Although her breathing was still rapid, she did not shout. What should we do? Mu Hongyan asked. Sister Mu, I'll hold them back. You leave quickly. Lu Qingmei said without thinking. They have so many people. If I leave, what will you do? Chapter 870. Mu Hongyan was pushed far away. When she saw Lu Qingmei charging over without a care for her own safety, her eyes reddened, and she almost burst into tears. However, she was different from other women. She would not act like a little girl who would cry and insist on staying no matter what. She did not have the strength to truss a chicken. If she stayed, she would only be of help. She could not help but regret that she should have asked Tang Zheng to teach her spells. Then she would not be so passive in this situation. Although she could not help, she could not do nothing. She took out her phone in a flurry and was about to call Tang Zheng. Suddenly, a figure flashed in front of her. A person in a cloak blocked her way. She was so scared that she staggered back. However, the other party closed in and grabbed her wrist, leaving her with nowhere to run. Hee, come with me. A cold laugh sounded. The cloak rolled up and covered Mu Hongyan. Let go of me. Mu Hongyan screamed. However, there was nothing she could do. She felt the world spinning and she was lifted off the ground. Lu Qingmei heard the scream and turned her head to look. She saw a black figure carrying Mu Hongyan into the air and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Big Sister Mu. Lu Qingmei called out anxiously. However, the only response she got was the fierce attacks of the 10 or so werewolves. She had a total of 2 magic treasures, the dragon trapping rope and the sumaru pouch. However, only the dragon trapping rope could fight the enemy. She waved her hand, and the dragon trapping rope that was trapping the werewolf suddenly contracted. With a boom, the werewolf exploded into a cloud of blood. Then the dragon trapping rope flew back into her hand. She shook the dragon trapping rope and fought the enemy with all her might. She was very inexperienced in fighting and was very anxious. Soon, she was in a mess and was about to fall into the hands of the werewolves. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the end of the street. A furious roar came from afar. "Go to hell, you werewolves!" Whoosh! A white figure was 1 step ahead and landed on the head of a werewolf. The werewolf quickly waved his claws to grab it. Bang! A huge force came from above, and the werewolf's head exploded like a ripe watermelon. Xiaobai waved its little white claws and disdainfully jumped down from the werewolf's corpse. With a kick of its hind legs, it pounced toward another werewolf. The werewolf roared again and again, trying to block Xiaobai. However, it saw a ball of flame soar into the sky. Its lush fur immediately caught fire, turning it into a fireball. It screamed and fell to the ground, finally turning into a pile of black ash. Tang Zheng's eyes were bloodshot as he held on to Battle Soul. Pu. A few sinister heads fell to the ground. Seeing this, the remaining werewolves screamed and fled in all directions. Tang Zheng snorted angrily. "All of you must die." His figure flashed, leaving only afterimages and streaks of blood. Then the sinister heads fell to the ground. A moment later, all the werewolves turned into cold corpses. Seeing Tang Zheng, Lu Qingmei heaved a sigh of relief. However, when she thought of Mu Hongyan, her heart jumped to her throat. She couldn't wait to say, "Tang Zheng, Sister Mu has been taken away. I'm really useless. I didn't protect Sister Mu well." Tang Zheng hugged her tightly, patted her back and comforted her. "Sister Mei, it's not your fault. I didn't protect you well. Don't worry, I will definitely save Sister Mu." Lu Qingmei leaned into his embrace. Only then did she feel a burst of fear. Her entire body went soft, and cold sweat broke out on her back. Her entire body trembled. Tang Zheng was in extreme pain and comforted her. "Don't be afraid. I'll take care of everything. I won't let them hurt you again." "Then what about Sister Mu?" Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with hatred. He gritted his teeth. "I will save her, and then let the enemy pay with their blood." Rockefeller had come prepared this time. Since Mu Hongyan had been captured and not killed on the spot, it meant that her life was not in danger for the time being. The other party definitely had other plans. He still had some time. "I'll send you home first. With Fu Yao protecting you, even if the enemy comes again, it won't be good for you." Tang Zheng pulled her back home as fast as lightning. As for the werewolf corpses on the ground, he didn't care about them anymore. This time, Rockefeller had started a war everywhere, clearly wanting to make things bigger. Even if Tang Zheng wanted to hide it, he couldn't. As for how the ordinary people would view this matter, he didn't have time to think about it. When the two of them returned home, they found that Empyrean Fairy, Nana, Wu and Lan Yu had already returned. When they saw the two of them enter the house, they quickly walked over to welcome them. "Little Zheng, are you all right?" Lan Yu was burning with anxiety. She pulled Tang Zheng's hand and sized him up. "I'm fine." Lan Yu patted her chest and said with lingering fear, "It's good that you're fine. What exactly happened this time?" "The Rockefeller family came to take revenge on me, but he didn't come directly to me. Instead, he targeted the people around me." Tang Zheng said hatefully, "He's simply too shameless." When he saw that Lu Qingmei had returned alone, his heart skipped a beat as he hurriedly asked, "Where's Sister Mu?" "She was taken away." Lu Qingmei's eyes turned red as sorrow welled up in her heart. The few of them were shocked. Wu Dang said, "Let's go save Sister Mu." "Calm down, we don't even know where they are. The capital is so big, where are we going to find them? All of you stay at home. Fu Yao, help me take care of them. If anyone dares to attack, kill them." Tang Zheng said with a murderous look. Empyrean Fairy rarely saw him lose control like this. She understood his feelings and nodded. Don't worry, with me here, no one can hurt them. Thank you. I'll go to the police station first. Sure and Ding Dang are at the police station. I heard that they caught someone alive, so I'll go take a look. I'll go with you. Wu and Lan Yu blurted out. The two of them looked at each other, and Lan Yu said with concern, "The one who came this time is not a good person. Furthermore, it's the Rockefeller family, not an ordinary person. I'll go with you in case there's any danger." She was concerned about her son's safety. She wanted nothing more than to stay by his side and protect him from being harmed in the slightest. However, Tang Zheng shook his head and refused. "I've already made up my mind. You guys stay at home, I'll be alone." Seeing that his attitude was so resolute, Lan Yu and Wu couldn't say anything more, and could only watch him leave. Ding ling ling. Tang Zheng's phone rang. It was actually Yen Patian. He went straight to the point and asked, "Tang Zheng, how are you?" "I'm fine. Sister Mu was taken away by them." "Mu Hongyan? Rockefeller's people are so daring. They actually came to the capital of Wuxia to capture people." Yen Patian said in a flustered and exasperated manner. "Elder Yen, use all of our strength and dig 3 feet into the ground to find them. I want to save Sister Mu unscathed." Tang Zheng's voice was close to a low growl, showing the anxiety and anger in his heart. Yen Patian felt the same way and said, "Don't worry, the Yen family is not to be trifled with. They came to the capital under the guise of the heavens and did so many things, so they will definitely leave behind some clues that can be traced. I will definitely be able to find them." "Alright, then let's keep in touch. Where are you going now?" "I'm going to the police station to pick someone up and meet the captured Strigoi. The commotion this time is too big. I'm afraid that the higher-ups will appear. You have to be mentally prepared." Yen Patian reminded. Tang Zheng secretly nodded his head. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Yen Potion's judgment was very accurate, and he also judged it the same way. However, when he arrived at the police station looked as if they were facing a great enemy. When he asked to see Feng Shishir and the others, he was pointed at by more than 10 guns. He was not afraid at all. He looked at the group of policemen and said, "Find the person in charge and talk to him." As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of hurried footsteps came from behind him. Then a loud and clear voice sounded. "Put down your guns. If he really wants to make a move, your guns will be like toys. They won't be able to do anything to him." Tang Zheng turned around and saw a familiar figure. "Ding Liang, why is it you?" This person was an agent of the National Security Bureau in the Atlantic Empire. After being rescued by Tang Zheng, he had never seen him again. Now that the National Security Bureau no longer existed, he did not expect to see him again. Ding Liang was still chubby as he held onto Tang Zheng's hand and said enthusiastically, "Tang Zheng, long time no see. You're in charge of this matter?" Tang Zheng asked suspiciously. "Yes, after all, I've been in the Atlantic Empire for so many years, so I'm familiar with Rockefeller's situation. This time, the chief ordered me to supervise this matter." Ding Liang said seriously. "Did you really alarm the higher-ups?" Ding Liang said seriously. "With such a big lineup today, how could it not alarm the higher-ups? Right now rumors are spreading all over the capital, and the impact is very bad. The chief ordered us to eliminate the impact as soon as possible." I don't care about the impact. I just want to catch the culprit." Tang Zheng coldly snorted and said. Ding Liang smiled bitterly. "Of course, this is also one of the goals. I want to see my friend first." "No problem." The police did not stop them and watched as they walked into a large room. Feng Shishir and the others were anxiously waiting inside. Seeing Tang Zheng, they seemed to have found their backbone and came forward to greet him. Tang Zheng looked at Sinosaurus and the others and said gratefully, "Brothers, thank you for your help this time." If it wasn't for their help, Feng Shishir and Yi Dingdang would not have been able to escape the fate of being kidnapped. He never thought that teaching his roommates magic would have such a wonderful opportunity. This was really a case of every sip and peck. Everything was predestined by karma. "Old 3, don't be so polite with us. This is what we should do. Right, let's get down to business first. What is going on this time?" Tang Zheng did not want them to get too involved and said, You don't have to worry about what happens next. The other party came with bad intentions, so I will take care of it. Sinosaurus said angrily. Old 3, don't tell me you don't treat us as brothers because you don't go to school anymore? How could that be? Since we're brothers, then of course we'll go through thick and thin together. No matter who it is, if they dare to touch us brothers, I'll use the mountain-shattering meteor hammer to smash their head back into their stomach. Sinosaurus said aggressively. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.